What is... Okay, are we live? Okay, we are live based. Kind of. What is... Okay, awesome. What is going on, y'all? Cat the Vat. Today we're going to be playing some Kenshi and listening to Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, parts of it. So let me go ahead and get this game loaded, and then we'll get the other... And then we'll get the audiobook started. Um, let's do... Hi, how are you doing? Okay, there. I don't know which start to start with. Maybe I'll do the sleeves. Okay. And while this is starting, we will wait because this is a long process. How is everybody doing today? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a fantastic day on this beautiful Sunday, I believe. I believe it's a Sunday. That's good. I'm glad you're doing amazing. I love this artwork. I think it's a mod that does it, but I still love it. Okay. So, as mentioned, we are going to be taking some notes and listening to... Oh, I don't want to edit this source. I want to edit this one. So we're going to do... Cat the Vat notes. Okay, and then that's ready. And then I am going to wait until we're in the game to start it so I can, like, get it going, you know? But, yeah. Okay, so I don't... Let's see. Is there a feminized version of Marcus? Could I do, like, Marca? Marca Aurelia. Really is cute. Okay, and then... You know, all things considered, this isn't an awful character, so we'll just confirm it. No. I have a second character? Oh my god, there's two of us? So we could do... Oh, let's just do Marcus and Aurelia. Okay, confirm. Y'all are not free. Oh my. I don't remember the controls to this game. Okay, so it's reverse of bar. Okay. Easy. Yeah, you get in there. What? No, I'm going, I promise. I'm getting in my cage. No, let me in. No. Oh, okay. Marcy. Oh my gosh, Marcy makes so much sense. That's great. Well, hopefully they bandage me up. There's a lot of people on me right now. I hope what they're doing is bandaging me. Let's speed her up. Okay. I'm gonna start the thing now.
Welcome to the Liberty Myself Emancipation
Oh my god,
Media
that's
Club.
loud.
Today's
There you
reading
go.
is
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
This is part of our twice daily content heartbeat designed to help build information autonomy in our algorithm-dominated world. Listen, reflect, and engage however works for you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Stay free.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the second book. Remember how long thou hast already put off these things, and how often a certain day, an hour, as it were, having been set unto thee by the gods, thou hast neglected it. It is high time for thee to understand the true nature both of the world whereof thou art a part, and of that Lord and Governor of the world, from whom, as a channel from the spring, thou thyself didst flow, and that there is but a certain limit of time appointed unto thee, which if thou shalt not make use of to calm and allay the many distempers of thy soul, it will pass away and thou with it, and never after return. Let it be thy earnest and incessant care as a Roman and a man to perform whatsoever it is that thou art about, with true and unfeigned gravity, natural affection, freedom and justice. And as for all other cares and imaginations, how thou mayest ease thy mind of them, which thou shalt do, if thou shalt go about every action as thy last action, free from all vanity, all passionate and willful aberration from reason, and from all hypocrisy and self-love and dislike of those things.
Real yearning for the minds. I feel like Marcus Aurelius is like, oh, just do the right thing and it'll all be okay. Do the right thing and you'll feel good inside. But he says thou a lot. I don't know why he says thou so often. It's thou, thou, thou. Maybe this is just a bad translation.
Which by the fates or appointment of God have happened unto thee. Thou seest that those things, which for a man to hold on in a prosperous course and to live a divine life are requisite and necessary, are not many, for the gods will require no more of any man that shall but keep and observe these things. Do, soul, do, abuse and contemn thyself. Yet a while in the time for thee to respect thyself will be at an end. Every man's happiness depends from himself, but behold, thy life is almost at an end, whilst affording thyself no respect, thou dost make thy happiness to consist in the souls and conceits of other men. Why should any of these things that happen externally so much distract thee? Give thyself leisure to learn some good thing, and cease roving and wandering to and fro. Thou must also take heed of another kind of wandering, for they are idle in their actions, who toil and labor in this life, and have no certain scope to which to direct all their motions and desires. For not observing the state of another man's soul, scarce was ever any man known to be unhappy. Tell whosoever they be that intend not, and guide not by reason and discretion the motions of their own souls. They must of necessity be unhappy. These
Wait, did he just say mind your business? Because people that can't mind their business and just try to mind everybody else's business just are miserable. They're just miserable people. That feels like that's what he's saying. He's like, wait a minute. If you try to figure out what other people are thinking and what other people are like doing and meaning, then you're probably just not having a good time, which is kind of based on Marcus Aurelius.
things thou must always have in mind. What is the nature of the universe, and what is mine own? In particular, this unto that what relation it hath, what kind of part of what kind of universe it is, and that there is nobody that can hinder thee, but that thou mayest always both do and speak those things which are agreeable to that nature, whereof thou art a part. Theophrastus, where he compares sin with sin, as after a vulgar sense such things I grant may be compared, says well and like a philosopher that those sins are greater which are committed through lust than those which are committed through anger. For he that is angry seems with a kind of grief and close contraction of himself to turn away from reason. But he that sins through lust, being overcome by pleasure, doth in his very sin bewray a more impotent and unmanlike disposition. Well then, and like a philosopher doth he say,
It's unmanly to do things because you want to do it, but it's not unmanly to do things because they made you angry. Or it's less unmanly. It might still be unmanly, but thank you for that distinction, Marcus Aurelius.
that he of the two is the more to be condemned, that sins with pleasure than he that sins with grief. For indeed this latter may seem first to have been wronged, and so in some manner through grief thereof to have been forced to be angry, whereas he who through lust doth commit anything, did of himself merely resolve upon that action. Whatsoever thou dost affect, whatsoever thou dost project, so do and so project all, as one who, for aught thou knowest, may at this very present depart out of this life. And as for death, if there be any gods, it is no grievous thing to leave the society of men. The gods will do thee no hurt, thou mayest be sure. But if it be so that there be no gods, or that they take no care of the world, why should I desire to live in a world void of gods and of all divine providence? But gods there be certainly, and they take care for the world. And as for those things which be truly evil, as vice and wickedness, such things they have put in a man's own power, that he might avoid them if he would. And had there been anything besides that had been truly bad and evil, they would have had a care of that also, that a man might have avoided it. But why should that be thought to hurt and prejudice a man's life in this world, which cannot any ways make man himself the better or the worse in his own person? Consider how quickly all things are dissolved and resolved, the bodies and substances themselves, into the matter and substance of the world, and their memories into the general age and time of the world. Consider the nature of all worldly sensible things, of those especially which either ensnare by pleasure, or for their irksomeness are dreadful, or for their outward luster, and show are in great esteem and request. How vile and contemptible, how base and corruptible, how destitute of all true life and being they are. It is the part of a man endowed with a good understanding faculty to consider what they themselves are in very deed, from whose bare conceits and voices, honor and
You were right. This is not beyond all reason. I need to change the game. Oh my. Oh my. I know how to do this. I swear. Edit. KENSHI. No. Gaming. KENSHI. There we go. Okay. That should have fixed it. Sorry, Razor.
credit do proceed, as also what it is to die, and how if a man shall consider this by itself alone, to die and separate from it in his mind all those things which with it usually represent themselves unto us, he can conceive of it no otherwise than as of a work of nature, and he that fears any work of nature is a very child. Now death it is not only a work of nature, but also conducing to nature. Consider with thyself how man, and by what part of his, is joined unto God, and how that part of man is affected when it is said to be diffused. If thou shouldst live 3,000 or as many as 10,000 of years, yet remember this, that man can part with no life properly, save with that little part of life which he now lives, and that which he lives is no other than that which at every instant he parts with. Remember that all is but opinion and conceit, for those things are plain and apparent, which were spoken unto Monomus the Cynic, and as plain and apparent is the use that may be made of those things, if that which is true and serious in them be received as well as that which is sweet and pleasing. A man's soul doth wrong and disrespect itself first, and especially when as much as in itself lies it becomes an aposteme, and as it were an excrescency of the world. The time of a man's life is as a point, the substance of it ever flowing, the sense obscure, and the whole composition of the body tending to corruption, whilst I was at Carnuntum. The third book. 1. A man must not only consider how daily his life wasteth and decreaseth, but this also, that if he live long, he cannot be certain whether his understanding shall continue so able and sufficient for either discreet consideration in matter of businesses, or for contemplation, it being the thing whereon true knowledge of things both divine and human doth depend. For if once he shall begin to dote, his respiration, nutrition, his imaginative and appetitive, and other natural faculties may still continue the same. He shall find no want of them. But how to make that right use of himself that he should, how to observe exactly in all things that which is right and just, how to redress and rectify all wrong, or sudden apprehensions and imaginations, and even of this particular, whether he should live any longer or no, to consider duly. For all such things, wherein the best strength and vigor of the mind is most requisite, his power and ability will be past and gone. Thou must hasten, therefore, not only because thou art every day nearer unto death than other, but also because that intellective faculty in thee, whereby thou art enabled to know the true nature of things, and to order all thy actions by that knowledge, doth daily waste and decay, or may fail thee before thou die. 2. This also thou must observe.
Wait, did he say, okay. Did he basically say, if you don't really think about what you're doing, you're gonna start doing bad things? Or did I misinterpret that?
That knowledge doth daily waste and decay, or may fail thee before thou die. 2. This also thou must observe, that whatsoever it is that naturally doth happen to things natural, hath somewhat in itself that is pleasing and delightful. As a great loaf, when it is baked, some parts of it cleave as it were, and part asunder, and make the crust of it rugged and unequal. And yet those parts of it, though in some sort it be against the art and intention of baking itself, that they are thus cleft and parted, which should have been and were first made all even and uniform, they become it well nevertheless, and have a certain peculiar property to stir the appetite. So figs are accounted fairest and ripest then, when they begin to shrink and wither as it were. So ripe olives, when they are next to putrefaction, then are they in their proper beauty. The hanging down of grapes, the brow of a lion, the froth of a foaming wild boar, and many other like things, though by themselves considered, they are far from any beauty. Yet because they happen naturally, they both are comely and delightful. So that if a man shall with a profound mind and apprehension consider all things in the world, even among all those things which are but mere accessories and natural appendices, as it were, there will scarce appear anything unto him wherein he will not find matter of pleasure and delight. So will he behold with as much pleasure the true rictus of wild beasts as those which by skillful painters and other artificers are imitated. So will he be able to perceive the proper ripeness and beauty of old age, whether in man or woman, and whatsoever else it is that is beautiful and alluring in whatsoever is. With chaste and continent eyes he will soon find out and discern. Those and many other things will he discern, not credible unto everyone, but unto them only who are truly and familiarly acquainted, both with nature itself and all natural things. 3. Hippocrates, having cured many sicknesses, fell sick himself and died. The Chaldeans and astrologians, having foretold the deaths of divers, were afterwards themselves surprised by the fates. Alexander and Pompeius and Caius Caesar, having destroyed so many towns, and cut off in the field so many thousands both of horse and foot, yet they themselves at last were fain to part with their own lives. Heraclitus, having written so many natural tracts concerning the last and general conflagration of the world, died afterwards all filled with water within, and all bedaubed with dirt and dung without. Lice killed Democritus, and Socrates another sort of vermin, wicked ungodly men. How then stands the case? Thou hast taken ship, thou hast sailed, thou art come to land, go out, if to another life. There also shalt thou find gods, who are everywhere. If all life and sense shall cease, then shalt thou cease also to be subject to either pains or pleasures, and to serve and tend this vile cottage, so much the viler, by how much that which ministers unto it doth excel, the one being a rational substance and a spirit, the other nothing but earth and blood. Fourth, spend not the remnant of thy days in thoughts and fancies concerning other men, when it is not in relation to some common good, when by it thou art hindered from some other better work. That is, spend not thy time in thinking what such a man doth, and to what end, what he saith, and what he thinks, and what he is about, and such other things or curiosities, which make a man to rove and wander from the care and observation of that part of himself, which is rational and overruling. See therefore in the whole series and connection of thy thoughts, that thou be careful to prevent whatsoever is idle and impertinent, but especially whatsoever is curious and malicious. And thou must use thyself to think only of such things, of which if a man upon a sudden should ask thee, what it is that thou art now thinking, thou mayest answer this and that, freely and boldly, that so by thy thoughts it may presently appear that in all thee is sincere and peaceable, as becometh one that is made for society, and regards not pleasures, nor gives way to any voluptuous imaginations at all, free from all contentiousness, envy, and suspicion, and from whatsoever else thou wouldest blush to confess thy thoughts were set upon. He that is such is he surely that doth not put off to lay hold on that which is best indeed, a very priest and minister of the gods, well acquainted and in good correspondence with him, especially that is seated and placed within himself, as in a temple and sacrary, to whom also he keeps and preserves himself unspotted by pleasure, undaunted by pain, free from any manner of wrong or contumely, by himself offered unto himself, not capable of any evil from others, a wrestler of the best sort, and for the highest prize, that he may not be cast down by any passion or affection of his own, deeply dyed and drenched in righteousness, embracing and accepting with his whole heart whatsoever either happeneth or is allotted unto him. One who not often, nor without some great necessity tending to some public good, mindeth what any other either speaks or doth or purposeth. For those things only that are in his own power, or that are truly his own, are the objects of his employments, and his thoughts are ever taken up with those things, which of the whole universe are by the fates or providence destinated and appropriated unto himself. Employments, only that are in his own power, or that are truly his own, are the objects of his employments, and his thoughts are ever taken up with those things, which of the whole universe are by the fates or providence destinated and appropriated unto himself. Those things that are his own, and in his own power, he himself takes order, for that they be good, and as for those that happen unto him, he believes them to be so. For that lot and portion which is assigned to everyone, as it is unavoidable and necessary, so is it always profitable. He remembers besides that whatsoever partakes of reason is akin unto him, and that to care for all men generally is agreeing to the nature of a man. But as for honor and praise, that they ought not generally to be admitted and accepted of from all, but from such only who live according to nature. As for them that do
Based. I feel like he's saying that you shouldn't. Oh, wait. Okay. What do I think he's saying? I think he said a lot of things. I think one part of what he's saying is that uh people become preoccupied with the things that they are preoccupied with. Like if you are um a builder, you're going to be preoccupied with building things, like the things of your employment, but not just the monetary things. Employment as in like the way that you employ your like agenticness, right? But then he's also talking about how you should not accept like honor from non-honorable people, which is an interesting thing, right? Like maybe that is something that, oh, where did Marcus go? Maybe that is something that we should be thinking of about like what people are saying, the nature of what people are saying versus, or sorry, the content of what people are saying versus the nature of how they're actually acting.
Do not, what manner of men they be at home or abroad, day or night, how condition themselves with what manner of conditions, or with men of what conditions they moil and pass away the time together. He knoweth and remembers right well, he therefore regards not such praise and approbation as proceeding from them who cannot like and approve themselves. 5. Do nothing against thy will, nor contrary to the community, nor without due examination, nor with reluctancy. Affect not to set out thy thoughts with curious neat language. Be neither a great talker nor a great undertaker. Moreover, let thy God that is in thee to rule over thee, find by thee that he hath to do with a man, an aged man, a sociable man, a Roman, a prince, one that hath ordered his life, as one that expecteth, as it were, nothing but the sound of the trumpet, sounding a retreat to depart out of this life with all expedition. One who for his word or actions neither needs an oath, nor any man to be a witness. 6. To be cheerful and to stand in no need either of other men's help or attendance, or of that rest and tranquility which thou must be beholding to others for. Rather like one that is straight of himself, or hath ever been straight, than one that hath been rectified. 7. If thou shalt find anything in this mortal life better than righteousness, than truth, temperance, fortitude, and in general better than a mind contented both with those things which according to right and reason she doth, and in those which without her will and knowledge happen unto thee by the providence. If I say thou canst find out anything better than this, apply thyself unto it with thy whole heart, and that which is best wheresoever thou dost find it, enjoy freely. But if nothing thou
No, based, and that's why we all deserve to eat AI slop, right? Because that is better than all of those things you mentioned. Why would we want any of those when we can have AI slop? So I'm throwing my full self into it. This is slash S, by the way, if you're rolling in your cave or your grave. Uh Marca Aurelia. Just kidding. Sorry.
thou shalt find worthy to be preferred to that spirit which is within thee, if nothing better than to subject unto thee thine own lusts and desires, and not to give way to any fancies or imaginations before thou hast duly considered of them. Nothing better than to withdraw thyself, to use Socrates his words, from all sensuality, and submit thyself unto the gods, and to have care of all men in general. If thou shalt find that all other things in comparison of this are but vile and of little moment, then give not way to any other thing, which being once, though but affected and inclined unto, it will no more be in thy power without all distraction as thou oughtest to prefer, and to pursue after that good, which is thine own and thy proper good. For it is not lawful that anything that is of another and inferior kind and nature, be it what it will, as either popular applause, or honor, or riches, or pleasures, should be suffered to confront and contest, as it were, with that which is rational and operatively good. For all these things, if once, though but for a while, they begin to please, they presently prevail, and pervert a man's mind, or turn a man from the right way. Do thou, therefore, I say absolutely and freely, make choice of that which is best, and stick unto it. Now that they say is best, which is most profitable, if they mean profitable to man as he is a rational man, stand thou to it and maintain it. But if they mean profitable as he is a creature, only reject it. And from this thy tenet and conclusion, keep off carefully all plausible shows and colors of external appearance, that thou mayest be able to discern things rightly.
That was based. They said if he is a real man, take it. But if he is a monster, if he is a false man, if he is not really a good person to follow, don't take it. So that based, Marcus Aurelius. You're so based. Ultra based, mega based, triple based, ultra mega triple based.
8. Never esteem of anything as profitable, which shall ever constrain thee either to break thy faith or to lose thy modesty, to hate any man, to suspect, to curse, to dissemble, to lust after anything that requireth the secret of walls or veils. But he that preferreth before all things his rational part and spirit, and the sacred mysteries of virtue which issueth from it, he shall never lament and exclaim, never sigh. He shall never want either solitude or company, and which is chiefest of all, he shall live without either desire or fear. And as for life, whether for a long or short time he shall enjoy his soul, thus compassed about with a body, he is altogether indifferent. For if even now he were to depart, he is as ready for it as for any other action, which may be performed with modesty and decency. For all his life long, this is his only care, that his mind may always be occupied in such intentions and objects as are proper to a rational, sociable creature. 9. In the mind that is once truly disciplined and purged, thou canst not find anything, either foul or impure, or as it were festered, nothing that is either servile or affected, no partial tie, no malicious averseness, nothing obnoxious, nothing concealed. The life of such an one, death can never surprise as imperfect, as of an actor that should die before he had ended, or the play itself were at an end, a man might speak. 10. Use thine opinative faculty with all honor and respect, for in her indeed is all, that thy opinion do not beget in thy understanding anything contrary to either nature, or the proper constitution of a rational creature. The end and object of a rational constitution is to do nothing rashly, to be kindly affected towards men, and in all things willingly to submit unto the gods. Casting therefore all other things aside, keep thyself to these few, and remember withal that no man properly can be said to live more than that which is now present, which is but a moment of time. Whatsoever is besides either is already past or uncertain. The time therefore that any man doth live is but a little, and the place where he liveth is but a very little corner of the earth. And the greatest fame that can remain of a man after his death, even that is but little, and that too, such as it is whilst it is by the succession of silly mortal men preserved, who likewise shall shortly die, and even whiles they live know not what in very deed they themselves are, and much less can know one who long before is dead and gone. 11th. To these ever-present helps and mementos, let one more be added, ever to make a particular description and delineation, as it were, of every object that presents itself to thy mind, that thou mayest wholly and truly contemplate it in its own proper nature, bare and naked, wholly and severally, divided into its several parts and quarters, and then by thyself in thy mind, to call both it and those things of which it doth consist, and in which it shall be resolved, by their own proper true names and appellations. For there is nothing so effectual to beget true magnanimity as to be able truly and methodically to examine and consider all things that happen in this life, and so to penetrate into their natures, that at the same time this also may concur in our apprehensions. What is the true use of it? And what
Let's
is
run
the
that
true
again.
every object that presents itself to thy mind, that thou mayest wholly and truly contemplate it in its own proper nature, bare and naked, wholly and severally, divided into its several parts and quarters, and then by thyself in thy mind, to call both it and those things of which it doth consist, and in which it shall be resolved, by their own proper true names and appellations. For there is nothing so effectual to beget true magnanimity as to be able truly and methodically to examine and consider all things that happen in this life. And so
There's nothing. Wait, 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 wait,
to
wait.
examine, beget true magnanimity.
To beget true, there's nothing that can bring you true greatness in this life other than correctly being able to break down and identify the parts of a thing and also the thing itself, and also be able to look at all aspects of that, the whole and the part at the same time. Thank you, Marcus Aurelius.
As to be able truly and methodically to examine and consider all things that happen in this life, and so to penetrate into their natures, that at the same time, this also may concur in our apprehensions. What is the true use of it? And what is the true nature of this universe, to which it is useful? How much in regard of the universe may it be esteemed? How much in regard of man, a citizen of the supreme city, of which all other cities in the world are as it were, but houses and families? 12. What is this that now my fancy is set upon? Of what things doth it consist? How long can it last? Which of all the virtues is the proper virtue for this present use, as whether meekness, fortitude, truth, faith, sincerity, contentation, or any of the rest? Of everything, therefore, thou must use thyself to say, this immediately comes from God, this by that fatal connection and concatenation of things, or, which almost comes to one, by some...
I wish someone would penetrate my nature. This is crazy. Oh my gosh. What do you think the
truth, virtue for this present...
What do you think is the most important virtue?
Use, as whether meekness, fortitude, truth, faith, sincerity, contentation, or any of the rest? Of everything, therefore...
What is your favorite virtue? Do you have a favorite virtue of any of those or any of the rest? Any of them? That's what Marcus Aurelius wants to know.
Thou must use thyself to say, this immediately comes from God, this by that fatal connection and concatenation of things, or, which almost comes to one, by some coincidental casualty. And as for this, it proceeds from my neighbor, my kinsman, my fellow, through his ignorance indeed, because he knows not what is truly natural unto him, but I know it, and therefore carry myself towards him according to the natural law of fellowship, that is kindly and justly. As for those things that of themselves are altogether indifferent, as in my best judgment I conceive everything to deserve more or less, so I carry myself towards it. 13. If thou shalt intend that which is present, following the rule of right and reason carefully, solidly, meekly, and shalt not intermix any other businesses, but shall study this only to preserve thy spirit unpolluted and pure, and shall cleave unto him without either hope or fear of anything. In all things that thou shalt either do or speak, contenting thyself with heroical truth, thou shalt live happily, and from this there is no man that can hinder thee. 14. As physicians and chirurgeons have always their instruments ready at hand for all sudden cures, so have thou always thy dogmata in a readiness for the knowledge of things, both divine and human. And whatsoever thou dost, even in the smallest things that thou dost, thou must ever remember that mutual relation and connection that is between these two things, divine and things human. For without relation unto God, thou shalt never speed in any worldly actions, nor on the other side in any divine, without some respect had to things human. 15. Be not deceived, for thou shalt never live to read thy moral commentaries, nor the acts of the famous Romans and Grecians, nor those excerpta from several books, all which thou hadst provided and laid up for thyself against thine old age. Hasten therefore to an end, and giving over all vain hopes, help thyself in time if thou carest for thyself, as thou oughtest to do. A question to ponder on is, if you know that life is brief and uncertain, how should you then live in a world where so much is beyond your control?
This has been an EMC reading from Liberty Myself. To learn more about our project to create decentralized media alternatives, visit libertymyself.com. By creating Liberty Myself, we create liberty for all.
The way I see it, courage is required to be virtuous in situations that matter.
It's passive and material. And
what the? That's based. Oh. I gotta... Oh, no. Come on. You gotta get out. You gotta get out. And then we'll tag team this guy. Get him. I'm just gonna keep going for it. Oh. Wait, stop attacking my friends. Wait, I didn't... No, let me out. I didn't mean to... Okay, okay. Next episode. Episode 2.
Welcome to the Liberty Myself Emancipation Media Club. Today's reading is
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, Part 2.
This is part of our twice-daily content heartbeat designed to help build information autonomy in our algorithm-dominated world. Listen, reflect, and engage however works for you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Stay free.
What the heck?
I. That inward mistress part of man, if it be in its own true natural temper, is towards all worldly chances and events ever so disposed and affected, that it will easily turn and apply itself to that which may be, and is within its own power to compass, when that cannot be, which at first it intended. For it never doth absolutely addict and apply itself to any one object, but whatsoever it is that it doth now intend and prosecute, it doth prosecute it with exception and reservation, so that whatsoever it is that falls out contrary to its first intentions, even that afterwards it makes its proper object. Even as the fire, when it prevails upon those things that are in his way, by which things indeed a little fire would have been quenched, but a great fire doth soon turn to its own nature, and so consume whatsoever comes in his way. Yea, by those very things it is made greater and greater. Second, let nothing be done rashly and at random, but all things according to the most exact and perfect rules of art. Third, they seek...
According to the rules of art is interesting. Don't do anything rashly. Did that say rashly or rationally? Let me go back. One sec. Rashly.
Let nothing be done rashly.
Let
and
nothing be done
but
rashly and
all
at
things
random.
according to the most exact and perfect rules of art.
Perfect rules of art. I like that. That's cute. I don't know why I like that, but that's cute. I like that a lot.
Third, they seek for themselves private retiring places, as country villages, the seashore, mountains. Yea, thou thyself art wont to long much after such places. But all this, thou must know, proceeds from simplicity in the highest degree. At what time soever thou wilt, it is in thy power to retire into thyself, and to be at rest, and free from all businesses. A man cannot any whither retire better than to his own soul, he especially who is beforehand provided of such things within, which whensoever he doth withdraw himself to look in, may presently afford unto him perfect ease and tranquillity. By tranquillity, I understand a decent orderly disposition and carriage, free from all confusion and tumultuousness. Afford then thyself this retiring continually, and thereby refresh and renew thyself. Let these precepts be brief and fundamental, which as soon as thou dost call them to mind, may suffice thee to purge thy soul truly, and to send thee away well pleased with those things whatsoever they be, which now again after this short withdrawing of thy soul into herself, thou dost return unto. For what is it that thou art offended at? Can it be at the wickedness of men, when thou dost call to mind this conclusion, that all reasonable creatures are made one for another, and that it is part of justice to bear with them, and that it is against their wills that they offend? And how many already, who once likewise prosecuted their enmities, suspected, hated, and fiercely contended, are now long ago stretched out, and reduced...
This one's really quiet.
It is time for thee to make an end. As for those things which among the common chances of the world happen unto thee as thy particular lot and portion, canst thou be displeased with any of them, when thou dost call that our ordinary dilemma to mind, either a Providence or Democritus as Adams, and with it, whatsoever we brought to prove that the whole world is as it were one city? And as for thy body, what canst thou fear if thou dost consider that thy mind and understanding, when once it hath recollected itself, and knows its own power, hath in this life and breath, whether it runs smoothly and gently, or whether harshly and rudely, no interest at all, but is altogether indifferent, and whatsoever else thou hast heard and assisted unto concerning either pain or pleasure, but the care of thine honor and reputation contemplation will perchance distract thee. How can that be, if thou dost look back, and consider both how quickly all things that are forgotten, and what an immense chaos of eternity was before, and will follow after all things, and the vanity of praise, and the inconstancy and variableness of human judgments and opinions, and the narrowness of the place wherein it is limited and circumscribed? For the whole earth is but as one point, and of it, this inhabited part of it, is but a very little part. And of this part, how many in number, and what manner of men are they that will commend thee? What remains then but
Real. They're like, the earth is all one, right? Like we're all kind of one organism. But most of the earth, especially at this time, right? This is Marcus Aurelius in ancient Greece, I think, right? So even way less of the earth was populated then, so makes a lot of sense why they would say that. But also, that's even true today, right? Like most of the earth is non-human, even if humans are a ton of the earth.
but that thou often put in practice this kind of retiring of thyself to this little part of thyself. And above all things,
Well, I'll
keep
help you.
thyself from distraction, and intend not anything vehemently, but be free and consider all things, as a man whose proper object is virtue, as a man whose true nature is to be kind and sociable, as a
Oh,
citizen,
my little
as a little
arm.
creature. Among other things, which to consider, and look into thou must use to withdraw thyself, let those two be among the most obvious and at hand. 1. That the things or objects themselves reach not unto the soul, but stand without still and quiet, and that it is from the opinion only which is within, that all the tumult and all the trouble doth proceed. The next, that all these things which now thou seest shall within a very little while be changed, and be no more, and ever call to mind how many changes and alterations in the world thou thyself hast already been an eyewitness of in thy time. This world is mere change, and this
Oh my
life,
God.
opinion. Fourth, if to understand and to be reasonable be common unto all men, that reason, for which we are termed reasonable, common unto all. If reason is general, then is that reason also, which prescribeth what is to be done and what not, common unto all.
This one's feisty.
If that, then law. If law, then are we fellow citizens. If so, then are we partners in some one commonweal. If so, then the world is as it were a city. For which other commonweal is it that all men can be said to be members of? From this common city it is that understanding, reason, and law is derived unto us, for from whence else? For as that which in me is earthly I have from some common earth, and that which is moist from some other element is imparted, as my breath and life hath its proper fountain, and that likewise which is dry and fiery in me. For there is nothing which doth not proceed from something, as also there is nothing that can be reduced unto mere nothing. So also is there some common beginning from whence my understanding hath proceeded. V. As generation is, so also death, a secret of nature's wisdom, a mixture of elements, resolved into the same elements again, a thing surely which no man ought to be ashamed of. In a series of other fatal events and consequences, which a rational creature is subject unto, not improper or incongruous, nor contrary to the natural and proper constitution of man himself. Sixth, such and such things from such and such causes must of necessity proceed. He that would not have such things to happen is as he that would have the fig tree grow without any sap or moisture. In sum, remember this, that within a very little while both thou and he shall both be dead, and after a little while more, not so much as your names and memories shall be remaining. 7.
Based.
Let opinion be taken away.
Base.
Have such things to happen is as he that would have the fig tree grow without any sap or moisture. In sum, remember this, that within a very little while both thou and he shall both be dead, and after a little while.
He's like, just think about it this way. Soon, you and the person that you're thinking about are going to be dead. And soon after that, nobody's going to remember who you are. So that's ultra mega based. Now, I did think it was really interesting when he was talking about like
Then
this
the
part.
world is, then are we partners? And what it is, this world is mere change, and this life, opinion. Fourth, if to understand and to be reasonable be common unto all men, then is that reason, for which we are termed reasonable, common unto all. If reason is general, then is that reason also, which prescribeth what is to be done and what not, common unto all. If that, then law. If law, then are we fellow citizens. If so, then are we partners in some one commonweal. If so, then the world is as it were a city. For which other commonweal is it that all men can be said to be members of? From this common city it is that understanding, reason, and law is derived unto us, for from whence else?
I found this part really interesting. I I think it's really intriguing to think of this idea as like all of humanity as one city, right? Like if the earth is a single city, then it would kind of change the way that we look at different people or different countries, right? Like instead of opposing countries, they become more like next door neighbors, right? So I think that's quite intriguing, especially given that this again was written an extremely long time ago. The cultural outlook, the cultural, window, Overton window would have been entirely different. So I find that interesting to think of both modern day applications of this, but also like historical applications of it as well. Yes, and I would wonder if he would still agree with it, um, even with the like increased amount of people and access. Like, would he still think that we're all part of a common wheel as 9 billion people, or does he only think this because there's like I don't know a million people total that exist?
A secret of nature's wisdom, a mixture of elements, resolved into the same elements again, a thing surely which no man ought to be ashamed of. In a series of other fatal events and consequences, which a rational creature is subject unto, not improper or incongruous, nor contrary to the natural and proper constitution of man himself. Sixth, such and such things from such and such causes must of necessity proceed. He that would not have such things to happen is as he that would have the fig tree grow without any sap or moisture. In sum, remember this, that within a very little while, both thou and he shall both be dead, and after a little while more, not so much as your names and memories shall be remaining. Seventh, let opinion be taken away, and no man will think himself wronged. If no man shall think himself wronged, then is there no more any such thing as wrong. That which makes not man himself the worse cannot make his life the worse. Neither can it hurt him either inwardly or outwardly. It was expedient in nature that it should be so, and therefore necessary. 8. Whatsoever doth happen in the world doth happen justly, and so, if thou dost well take heed, thou shalt find it. I say not only in right order, by a series of inevitable consequences, but according to justice and as it were by way of equal distribution, the true worth of everything. Continue then to take notice of it, as thou hast begun, and whatsoever thou dost, do it not without this proviso, that it be a thing of that nature that a good man, as the word good is properly taken, may do it. This observe carefully in every action. 9. Conceit no such things, as he that wrongeth thee conceiveth, or would have thee to conceive, but look into the matter itself, and see what it is in very truth. X. These two rules thou must have always in a readiness. First, do nothing at all, but what reason proceeding from that regal and supreme part shall for the good and benefit of men suggest unto thee. And secondly, if any man that is present shall be able to rectify thee, or to turn thee from some erroneous persuasion, that thou be always ready to change thy mind, and this change to proceed, not from any respect of any pleasure or credit thereon depending, but always from some probable apparent ground of justice, or of some public good thereby to be furthered, or from some other such inducement. 11th. Hast thou reason? I have. Why then makest thou not use of it? For if thy reason do her part, what more canst thou require? 12th. As a part hitherto thou hast had a particular subsistence, and now shalt thou vanish away into the common substance of him who first begot thee, or rather thou shalt be resumed again into that original rational substance, out of which all others have issued and are propagated. Many small pieces of frankincense are set upon the same altar. One drops first and is consumed, another after, and it comes all to one. 3. Within 10 days, if so happen, thou shalt be esteemed a god of them, who now, if thou shalt return to the dogmata, and to the honoring of reason, will esteem of thee no better than of a mere brute, and of an ape. 14. Not as though thou hadst thousands of years to live. Death hangs over thee, whilst yet thou livest, whilst thou mayest, be good. Now much time and leisure doth he gain, who is not curious to know what his neighbor hath said, or hath done, or hath attempted, but only what he doth himself, that it may be just and holy. Or to express it in Agathos's words, not to look about upon the evil conditions of others, but to run on straight in the line, without any loose and extravagant agitation.
16th. He who is greedy.
I feel like that is similar to what he was saying in the first one, where he was saying that like, if you are just worried about yourself, you're not going to be unhappy. But if you worry about everybody else, you're going to be unhappy. And it sounds like he just said the same exact thing. I wonder if a lot of this book is kind of like walking in circles, or not really walking in circles, but repeating a lot of the same advice, for lack of better terms.
Of credit and reputation after his death, doth not consider that they themselves by whom he is remembered shall soon after every one of them be dead, and they likewise that succeed those, until at last all memory, which hitherto by the succession of men admiring and soon after dying hath had its course, be quite extinct. But suppose that both they that shall remember thee, and thy memory with them should be immortal, what is that to thee? I will not say to thee after thou art dead, but even to thee living, what is thy praise? But only for a secret and politic consideration, which we call economian or dispensation. For as for that it is the gift of nature, whatsoever is commended in thee, what might be objected from thence, let that now that we are upon another consideration be omitted as unseasonable. That which is fair and goodly, whatsoever it be, and in what respect soever it be, that it is fair and goodly. It is so of itself, and terminates in itself, not admitting praise as a part or member, that therefore which is praised is not thereby made either better or worse. This I understand even of those things that are commonly called fair and good, as those which are commended either for the matter itself or for curious workmanship. As for that which is truly good, what can it stand in need of more than either justice or truth, or more than either kindness and modesty? Which of all those either becomes good or fair because commended, or dispraised suffers any damage? Doth the emerald become worse in itself, or more vile if it be not commended? Doth gold, or ivory, or purple? Is there anything that doth though never so common as a knife, a flower, or a tree? 17th. If so be that the souls remain after death, say they that will not believe it, how is the air from all eternity able to contain them? How is the earth, say I, ever from that time able to contain the bodies of them that are buried? For as here the change and resolution of dead bodies into another kind of subsistence, whatsoever it be, makes place for other dead bodies. So the souls after death transferred into the air, after they have conversed there a while, are either by way of transmutation, or transfusion, or conflagration, received again into that original rational substance, from which all others do proceed. And so give way to those souls who, before coupled and associated unto bodies, now begin to subsist single. This upon a supposition that the souls after death do for a while subsist single may be answered. And here, besides the number of bodies, so buried and contained by the earth, we may further consider the number of several beasts, eaten by us men and by other creatures. For notwithstanding that such a multitude of them is daily consumed,
Thank you, Zachary.
and as it were buried in the bodies of the eaters, yet is the same place and body able to contain them, by reason of their conversion, partly into blood, partly into air and fire. What in these things is the speculation of truth? To divide things into that which is passive and material, and that which is active and formal. 18th, not to wander out of the way, but upon every motion and desire to perform that which is just, and ever to be careful to attain to the true natural apprehension of every fancy that presents itself. 29. Whatsoever is expedient unto thee, O world, is expedient unto me. Nothing can either be unseasonable unto me or out of date, which unto thee is seasonable. Whatsoever thy seasons bear shall ever by me be esteemed as happy fruit and increase. O nature, from thee are all things, in thee all things subsist, and to thee all tend. Could he say of Athens, thou lovely city of sea crops, and shalt not thou say of the world, thou lovely city of God? They will say commonly, meddle not with many things if thou wilt live cheerfully. Certainly there is nothing better than for a man to confine himself to necessary actions, to such and so many only as reason in a creature that knows itself born for society will command and enjoin. This will not only procure that cheerfulness which from the goodness, but that also which from the paucity of actions doth usually proceed. For since it is so, that most of those things which we either speak or do are unnecessary, if a man shall cut them off, it must needs follow that he shall thereby gain much leisure and save much trouble. And therefore at every action a man must privately by way of admonition suggest unto himself, what? May not this that now I go about be of the number of unnecessary actions? Neither must he use himself to cut off actions only, but thoughts and imaginations also that are unnecessary, for so will unnecessary consequent actions the better be prevented and cut off. Wait, try also how a good man's life, of one who is well pleased with those things whatsoever, which among the common changes and chances of this world fall to his own lot and share, and can live well contented and fully satisfied in the justice of his own proper present action, and in the goodness of his disposition for the future, will agree with thee. Thou hast had experience of that other kind of life. Make now trial of this also. Trouble not thyself any more henceforth. Reduce thyself unto perfect simplicity. Doth any man offend? It is against himself that he doth offend. Why should it trouble thee? Hath anything happened unto thee? It is well, whatsoever it be. It is that which of all the common chances of the world from the very beginning in the series of all other things that have, or shall happen, was destinated and appointed unto thee? To comprehend all in a few words, our life is short. We must endeavor to gain the present time with best discretion and justice. Use recreation with sobriety. Either this world is a cosmos or comely piece, because all disposed and governed by certain order.
Real. Enjoy life, because life is short. I don't even know if that's what he said, but that's what I'm going to say you said.
Or if it be a mixture, though confused, yet still it is a comely piece. For is it possible that in thee there should be any beauty at all, and that in the whole world there should be nothing but disorder and confusion? And all things in it too, by natural different properties, one from another differenced and distinguished, and yet all through diffused and by natural sympathy, one to another united, as they are? 23rd, a black or malign disposition, an effeminate disposition, an hard inexorable disposition, a wild inhuman disposition, a sheepish disposition, a childish disposition, a blockish, a false, a scurril, a fraudulent, a tyrannical. What then? If he be a stranger in the world, that knows not the things that are in it, why not be a stranger as well, that wonders at the things that are done in it? 24th, he is a true...
Did that make any sense? I feel like he listed a bunch of stuff. He was like, if this is your disposition...
23rd, a black or
Wait
malign
a minute.
disposition,
What?
an effeminate disposition, an hard inexorable disposition, a wild inhuman disposition, a sheepish disposition, a childish disposition, a blockish, a false, a scurril, a fraudulent, a tyrannical. What then? If he be a stranger in the world, that knows not the things that are in it, why not be a stranger as well, that wonders at the things that are done in it? 24th, he is a true fugitive.
Are they saying that it's effeminate and childish to not wonder at what is in the world? Is that what's being said?
Third, a black or malign disposition, an effeminate disposition, an hard, inexorable disposition, a wild, inhuman disposition, a sheepish disposition, a childish disposition, a blockish, a false, a skirl, a fraudulent, a tyrannical. What then? If he be a stranger in the world, that knows not the things that are in it, why not be a stranger as well, that wonders at the things that are done in it? 20.
Okay, I don't know if the two are connected. I'm gonna assume culturally they're connected, given the like for the time and context, but I don't think they're so connected. But I think what is important here is the idea of, if you're gonna be a stranger in the world who doesn't know things, why not be a curious stranger at how the world works rather than being a stranger who is not like that?
Fourth, he is a true fugitive that flies from reason, by which men are sociable. He blind who cannot see with the eyes of his understanding. He poor that stands in need of another, and hath not in himself all things needful for this life. He an apostemy of the world, who by being discontented with those things that happen unto him in the world, doth as it were apostatize and separate himself from common nature's rational administration. For the same nature it is that brings this unto thee, whatsoever it be, that first brought thee into the world. He raises.
Wait, you think so? No, I gotta listen to it again.
A malign disposition, an effeminate disposition, an hard, inexorable disposition, a wild, inhuman disposition, a sheepish disposition, a childish disposition, a blockish, a false, a skirl, a fraudulent, a tyrannical. What then? If he be a stranger in the world, that knows not the things that are in it, why not be a stranger as well, that wonders at the things that are done in it? 24th.
You're right. I do think he just listed them. And then he was just like, "Oh, by the way, if you're going to be a stranger, be a curious stranger." But also, if you're effeminate or childish or tyrannical or a squirrel, what then? What are you going to do? What can you do? Might as well be curious, right? Why not?
He is a true fugitive that flies from reason, by which men are sociable. He blind who cannot see with the eyes of his understanding. He poor that stands in need of another, and hath not in himself all things needful for this life. He an apostemy of the world, who by being discontented with those things that happen unto him in the world, doth as it were apostatize and separate himself from common nature's rational administration. For the same nature it is that brings this unto thee, whatsoever it be, that first brought thee into the world. He raises sedition in the city, who by irrational actions withdraws his own soul from that one and common soul of all rational creatures. There is who without so much as a coat, and there is who without so much as a book doth put philosophy in practice. I am half naked, neither have I bread to eat, and yet I depart not from reason, saith one. But I say, I want the food of good teaching and instructions, and yet I depart not from reason. Sacrisidungs, what art and profession soever thou hast learned, endeavor to effect it, and comfort thyself in it, and pass the remainder of thy life as one who from his whole heart commits himself, and whatsoever belongs unto him unto the gods. And as for men, carry not thyself either tyrannically or servilely towards any. Consider in my mind, for example's sake, the times of Vespasian. Thou shalt see but the...
Don't be a tyrant or a servant or a servile. That seems like good advice from Mr. Marcus Aurelius.
same things. Some marrying, some bringing up children, some sick, some dying, some fighting, some feasting, some merchandising, some tilling, some flattering, some boasting, some suspecting, some undermining, some wishing to die, some fretting and murmuring at their present estate, some wooing, some hoarding, some seeking after magistracies, and some after kingdoms. And is not that their age quite over and ended? Again consider now the times of Trajan. There likewise thou seest the very self-same things, and that age also is now over and ended. In the like manner consider other periods, both of times and of whole nations, and see how many men, after they had with all their might and main intended and prosecuted some one worldly thing or other, did soon after drop away, and were resolved into the elements. But especially thou must call to mind them, whom thou thyself in thy lifetime hast known much distracted about vain things, and in the meantime neglecting to do that, and closely and inseparably, as fully satisfied with it, to adhere unto it, which their own proper constitution did require. And here thou must remember that thy carriage in every business must be according to the worth and due proportion of it, for so shalt thou not easily be tired out and vexed, if thou shalt not dwell upon small matters longer than is fitting. Exixvate, those words which once were common and ordinary, are now become obscure and obsolete. And so the names of men once commonly known and famous are now become in a manner obscure and obsolete names. Camillus, Caeso, Valetius, Leonatus. Not long after, Scipio, Cato, then Augustus, then Adrianus, then Antoninus Pius. All these in a short time will be out of date, and as things of another world, as it were.
Yeah, nobody's gonna talk about any of those people ever again. None of them. None of them are ever gonna be important ever in anything. Nothing. Nothing. None of them ever.
Become fabulous. And this I say of them who once shined as the wonders of their ages. For as for the rest, no sooner are they expired than with them all their fame and memory. And what is it then that shall always be remembered? All is vanity. What is it that we must bestow our care and diligence upon? Even upon this only, that our minds and wills be just, that our actions be charitable, that our speech be never deceitful, or that our understanding be not subject to error, that our inclination be always set to embrace whatsoever shall happen unto us, as necessary, as usual, as ordinary, as flowing from such a beginning, and such a fountain, from which both thou thyself and all things are. Willingly, therefore, and wholly surrender up thyself unto that fatal concatenation, yielding up thyself unto the fates, to be disposed of at their pleasure. 29th. Whatsoever is now present, and from day to day hath its existence, all objects of memories and the minds and memories themselves incessantly consider. All things that are, have their being by change and alteration. Use thyself therefore often to meditate upon this, that the nature of the universe delights in nothing more than in altering those things that are, and in making others like unto them. So that we may say, that whatsoever is but as it were the seed of that which shall be. For if thou think that that only is seed, which either the earth or the womb receiveth, thou art very simple. XXX. Thou art now ready to die, and yet hast thou not attained to that perfect simplicity. Thou art yet subject to many troubles and perturbations, not yet free from all fear and suspicion of external accidents, nor yet either so meekly disposed towards all men as thou shouldest, or so affected as one, whose only study and only wisdom is to be just in all his actions. Ganreishad. Behold and observe, what is the state of their rational part, and those that the world doth account wise, see what
What is the state of their rational account?
things they fly and are afraid of, and what things they hunt after. 32nd. In another man's mind and understanding thy evil cannot subsist, nor in any proper temper or distemper of the natural constitution of thy body, which is but as it were the coat or cottage of thy soul. Wherein then, but in that part of thee, wherein the conceit and apprehension of any misery can subsist, let not that part therefore admit any such conceit, and then all is well. Though thy body which is so near it should either be cut or burnt, or suffer any corruption or putrefaction, yet let that part to which it belongs to judge of these be still at rest. That is, let her judge this, that whatsoever it is, that equally may happen to a wicked man and to a good man is neither good nor evil. For that which happens equally to him that lives according to nature and to him that doth not, is neither according to nature nor against it, and by consequent neither good nor bad. 43. Ever consider and think upon the world as being but one living substance, and having but one soul, and how all things in the world are terminated into one sensitive power, and are done by one general motion, as it were, and deliberation of that one soul, and how all things that are concur in the cause of one another's being, and by what manner of connection and concatenation all things happen. What art thou, that better and divine part accepted, But as Epictetus said, well, a wretched soul appointed to carry a carcass up and down. 35. How all
What
the world
the?
is bad. According to equally good man is, let that it should either or admit any an outage of the natural ending thy evil after to be just in all his actions.
Okay.
Ganrei Shad. Behold and observe, what is the state of their rational part, and those that the world doth account wise, see what things they fly and are afraid of, and what things they hunt after. 32nd. In another man.
See what motivates people and what they avoid, right?
Mind and understanding thy evil cannot subsist, nor in any proper temper or distemper of the natural constitution of thy body, which is but as it were the coat or cottage of thy soul. Wherein then, but in that part of thee, wherein the conceit and apprehension of any misery can subsist, let not that part therefore admit any such conceit, and then all is well. Though thy body, which is so near it, should.
I feel like that part is saying that if you allow, like, conceit or other what they might deem as like negative characteristics in various parts of your life, they'll seep into all parts of your life, but I could be misinterpreting that.
Should either be cut or burnt, or suffer any corruption or putrefaction, yet let that part to which it belongs to judge of these be still at rest. That is, let her judge this, that whatsoever it is, that equally may happen to a wicked man and to a good man is neither good nor evil. For that which happens equally to him that lives according to nature and to him that doth not, is neither according to nature nor against it, and by consequent, neither good nor bad. 43. Ever consider and think upon the world as being but one living substance, and having but one soul, and how all things in the world are terminated into one sensitive power, and are done by one general motion, as it were, and deliberation of that one soul, and how all things that are concur in the cause of one another's being, and by what manner of connection and concatenation all things happen. What art thou, that better and divine part accepted, but as Epictetus said well, a wretched soul, appointed to carry a carcass up and down? 35. To suffer change.
What are you? I'm a wretched soul destined to carry a carcass up and down. That's so black pilled. Oh my gosh.
Can be no hurt, as no benefit it is, by change to attain to being. The age and time of the world is as it were a flood and swift current, consisting of the things that are brought to pass in the world. For as soon as anything hath appeared and is passed away, another succeeds, and that also will presently out of sight. Check 6 Whatsoever doth happen in the world is, in the course of nature, as usual and ordinary as a rose in the spring and fruit in summer. Of the same nature is sickness and death, slander and lying in wait, and whatsoever else ordinarily doth unto fools use to be occasion either of joy or sorrow. That, whatsoever it is that comes after, doth always very naturally, and as it were familiarly, follow upon that which was before. For thou must consider the things of the world not as a loose independent number, consisting merely of necessary events, but as a discrete connection of things orderly and harmoniously disposed. There is then to be seen in the things of the world not a bare succession, but an admirable correspondence and affinity. Exkex is 7th. Let that of Heraclitus never be out of thy mind.
I like that, where he's like, remember that the world is ultra connected, so there will be like things that lead to other things that are not always so clear on the surface. So I like that. I
That
like
the
that.
death of earth is water, and the death of water is air, and the death of air is fire, and so on the contrary. Remember him also who was ignorant whither the way did lead, and how that reason being the thing by which all things in the world are administered, and which men are continually and most inwardly conversant with, yet is the thing which ordinarily they are most in opposition with, and how those things which daily happen among them cease not daily to be strange unto them, and that we should not either speak or do anything as men in their sleep, by opinion and bare imagination. For then we think we speak and do, and that we must not be as children who follow their father's example. For best reason alleging their bare cathodi paralifamen, or as by successive tradition from our forefathers we have received it. Dakshak Sadim 8th. even as if any of the gods should tell thee, thou shalt certainly die tomorrow or next day, thou wouldst not, except thou wert extremely base and pusillanimous, take it for a great benefit, rather to die the next day after than tomorrow. For alas, what is the difference? So, for the same reason, think it no great matter to die rather many years after than the very next day. That is 29. Let it be thy perpetual meditation. How many physicians who once looked so grim and so theatrically shrunk their brows upon their patients are dead and gone themselves? How many astrologers, after that in great ostentation they had foretold the death of some others? How many philosophers, after so many elaborate tracts and volumes concerning either mortality or immortality? How many brave captains and commanders, after the death and slaughter of so many?
Am I like a gang?
How many kings and
Am I like a gang leader in here? Why are they all following me? What the heck? I don't know what's happening.
tyrants, after they had with such horror and insolency abused their power upon men's lives, as though themselves had been immortal? How many, that I may so speak, whole cities, both men and towns, Hellas, Pompeii, Herculaneum, and others innumerable, are dead and gone? Run them over also, whom thou thyself, one
No.
after another, hast known in thy time to drop away. Such and such a one took care of such and such a one's burial, and soon after was buried himself. So one, so another, and all things in a short time. For herein lieth all indeed, ever to look upon all worldly things as things for their continuance, that are but for a day, and for their worth most vile and contemptible. As for example, what is man? That which but the other day when he was conceived was vile snivel, and within few days shall be either an embalmed carcass or mere ashes. Thus must thou, according to truth and nature, truly consider how man's life is but for a very moment of time, and so depart meek and contented, even as if a ripe olive falling should praise the ground that bare her, and give thanks to the tree that begat her. XL, thou must be like a promontory of the sea, against which though the waves beat continually, yet it both itself stands, and about it are those swelling waves stilled and quieted. Eke thou lies, O wretched I, to whom this mischance is happened? Nay, happy I, to whom this thing being happened, I can continue without grief, neither wounded by that which is present, nor in fear of that which is to come. For as for this, it might have happened unto any man, but any man having such a thing befallen him could not have continued without grief. Why then should that rather be an unhappiness than this a happiness? But however, canst thou, O man, term that unhappiness, which is no mischance to the nature of man? Canst thou think that a mischance to the nature of man, which is not contrary to the end and will of his nature? What then hast thou learned is the will of man's nature? Doth that then which hath happened unto thee hinder thee from being just, or magnanimous, or temperate, or wise, or circumspect, or true, or modest, or free, or from anything else of all those things in the present enjoying and possession whereof the nature of man, as then enjoying all that is proper unto her, is fully satisfied? Now to conclude, upon all occasion of sorrow remember henceforth to make use of this dogma, that whatsoever it is that hath happened unto thee is in very deed no such thing of itself as a misfortune, but that to bear it generously is certainly great happiness.
So whenever bad things happen to you, just remember it's just bad luck, and you should be thankful that it happened. Thank you, Marcus Aurelius. Also, yeah, no, this game it really does, like, you kind of just get beat up over and over and over, and they're very resilient as long as they are positive health, which I have not been making sure of, and that's why Aurelius is missing an arm and Marcus is missing a leg, which is really unfortunate. I hope they don't punish him for not being a worse slave. Because that would be unfortunate for everybody involved here.
It is but an ordinary coarse one, yet it is a good effectual remedy against the fear of death. For a man to consider in his mind the examples of such, who greedily and covetously, as it were, did for a long time enjoy their lives. What have they got more than they whose deaths have been untimely? Are not they themselves dead at the last? As Cadicians, Fabius, Julianus Lepidus, or any other who in their lifetime having buried many, were at the last buried themselves. The whole space of any man's life is but little, and as little as it is, with what troubles, with what manner of dispositions, and in the society of how wretched a body must it be passed. Let it be therefore unto thee altogether as a matter of indifferency. For if thou shalt look backward, behold what an infinite chaos of time doth present itself unto thee, and as infinite a chaos if thou shalt look forward. In that which is so infinite, what difference can there be between that which liveth but 3 days and that which liveth 3 ages? 43rd, let thy course ever be the most compendious way. The most compendious is that which is according to nature. That is, in all both words and deeds, ever to follow that which is most sound and perfect. For such a resolution will free a man from all trouble, strife, dissembling, and ostentation. A question to ponder on is, how can you live each day as if it were my last, without fear or regret?
This has been an EMC reading from Liberty Myself. To learn more about our project to create decentralized media alternatives, visit libertymyself.com. By creating Liberty Myself, we create liberty for all.
I love that they just have like
Welcome to the
stove
Liberty
here.
Myself Emancipation Media Club. Today's reading is
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
This is part of our twice daily content heartbeat designed to help build information autonomy in our algorithm-dominated world. Listen, reflect, and engage however works for you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Stay free.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. The fifth book one. In the morning, when thou findest thyself and willing to rise, consider with thyself presently, it is to go about the man's work that I am stirred up. Am I then yet unwilling to go about that, for which I myself was born and brought forth into this world? Or was I made for this, to lay me down, and make much of myself in a warm bed? Oh, but this is pleasing. And was it then for this that thou wert born, that thou mightest enjoy pleasure? Was it not in very truth for this, that thou mightest always be busy and in action? Seest thou not how all things in the world besides, how every tree and plant, how sparrows and ants, spiders and bees, how all in their kind are intent as it were orderly to perform whatsoever towards the preservation of this orderly universe naturally
does it
doth
keep doing that?
become and belong unto them.
I do not understand why it keeps taking screenshots. Have you ever played this game, Lexi? Leaxical?
And wilt not thou do that, which belongs unto a man to do? Wilt not thou run to do that, which thy nature doth require? But thou must have some rest, yes, thou must. Nature hath of that also, as well as of eating and drinking, allowed thee a certain stint. But thou gest beyond thy stint, and beyond that which would suffice, and in matter of action, there thou comest short of that which thou mayest. It must needs be therefore that thou dost not love thyself, for if thou didst, thou wouldst also love thy nature, and that which thy nature doth propose unto herself as her end. Others,
You don't love yourself, obviously, because you don't love how you are. GG. Marcus Aurelius. Too brutal. Brutal black pill.
as many as take pleasure in their trade and profession, can even pine themselves at their works, and neglect their bodies and their food for it. And doest thou less honor thy nature than an ordinary mechanic his trade, or a good dancer his art, than a covetous man his silver, and vainglorious man applause? These to whatsoever they take an affection, can be content to want their meat and sleep, to further that every one which he affects, and shall actions, tending to the common good of human society, seem more vile unto thee, or worthy of less respect and intention. 2. How easy a thing is it for a man to put off from him all turbulent adventitious imaginations, and presently to be in perfect rest and tranquility. 3. Think thyself fit and worthy to speak, or to do anything that is according to nature, and let not the reproach, or report of some that may ensue upon it, ever deter thee, if it be right and honest to be spoken or done. Undervalue not thyself so much, as to be discouraged from it. As for them, they have their own rational overruling part, and their own proper inclination, which thou must not stand and look about to take notice of, but go on straight, whither both thine own particular and the common nature do lead thee. And the way of both these is but one, for I continue my course by actions according to nature, until I fall and cease, breathing out my last breath into that ear by which continually breathed in I did live, and falling upon that earth, out of whose gifts and fruits my father gathered his seed, my mother her blood, and my nurse her milk, out of which for so many years I have been provided, both of meat and drink. And lastly, which beareth me that tread upon it, and beareth with me that so many ways do abuse it, or so freely make use of it, so many ways to so many ends. 5. No man can admire thee for thy sharp acute language, such is thy natural disability that way, be it so, yet there be many other good things, for the want of which thou canst not plead the want or natural ability. Let them be seen in thee, which depend wholly from thee. Sincerity, gravity, laboriousness, contempt of pleasures. Be not querulous, be content with little, be kind, be free. Avoid all superfluity, all vain prattling, be magnanimous. Doest not thou perceive how many things there be, which notwithstanding any pretense of natural indisposition and unfitness, thou mightest have performed and exhibited, and yet still thou doest voluntarily continue drooping downwards? Or wilt thou say that it is through defect of thy natural constitution that thou art constrained to murmur, to be base and wretched to flatter, now to accuse, and now to please, and pacify thy body, to be vainglorious, to be so giddy-headed, and unsettled in thy thoughts? Nay, witnesses be the gods of all these thou mightest have been.
This is hilarious. He's going so hard. He's like, if you are not able to use big words, just deal with it and learn how to be good at other things. Like, are you really just gonna tell me that it's your nature that you're bad at words and you're greedy and you're vain and you're like all these things? Like, are you really gonna sit here and tell me that that's just how you are? Like, are you serious? Like, he's not messing around. He's going hard.
But long ago, only this thou must have been contented with, to have borne the blame of one that is somewhat slow and dull, wherein thou must so exercise thyself, as one who neither doth much take to heart this his natural defect, nor yet pleaseth himself in it. 6. Such there be, who when they have done a good turn to any, are ready to set them on the score for it, and to require retaliation. Others there be, who though they stand not upon retaliation, to require any, yet they think with themselves nevertheless, that such a one is their debtor, and they know as their word is what they have done. Others again there be, who when they have done any such thing, do not so much as know what they have done, but are like unto the vine, which beareth her grapes, and when once she hath borne her own proper fruit, is contented and seeks for no further recompense. As a horse after a race, and a hunting dog when he hath hunted, and a bee when she hath made her honey, look not for applause and commendation. So neither doth that man that rightly doth understand his own nature when he hath done a good turn, but from one doth proceed to do another, even as the vine after she hath once borne fruit in her own proper season, is ready for another time. Thou therefore must be one of them, who what they do, barely do it without any further thought, and are in a manner insensible of what they do. Nay, but will some reply perchance, this very thing a rational man is bound unto, to understand what it is that he doeth, for it is the property, say they, of one that is naturally sociable, to be sensible that he doth operate sociably, nay, and to desire that the party himself that is sociably dealt with should be sensible of it too. I answer, that which thou sayest is true indeed, but the true meaning of that which is said, thou dost not understand. And therefore art thou one of those first, whom I mentioned, for they also are led by a probable appearance of reason. But if thou dost desire to understand truly what it is that is said, fear not that thou shalt therefore give over any sociable action. 7. The form.
He said, everything you said is true, but you don't actually know what you're talking about. Oh my goodness.
Of the Athenians' prayer did run thus: Reign, reign, good Jupiter, upon all the grounds and fields that belong to the Athenians. Either we should not pray at all, or thus absolutely and freely. And not every one for himself in particular alone, eat, as we say. Commonly the physician hath prescribed unto this man riding, unto another cold baths, unto a third to go barefoot. So it is alike to say, the nature of the universe hath prescribed unto this man sickness, or blindness, or some loss, or damage, or some such thing. For as there, when we say of a physician, that he hath prescribed anything, our meaning is, that he hath appointed this for that, as subordinate and conducing to health. So here, whatsoever doth happen unto any, is ordained unto him as a thing subordinate unto the fates, and therefore do we say of such things, that they do sigma upsilon mu beta alpha y nu epsilon iota nu, that is, happen, or fall together. As of square stones, when either in walls, or pyramids in a certain position they fit one another, and agree as it were in an harmony, the masons say, that they do sigma upsilon mu beta alpha y nu epsilon iota nu. As if thou shouldest say, fall together, so that in the general, though the things be divers that make it, yet the consent, or harmony itself is but one. And as the whole world is made up of all the particular bodies of the world, one perfect and complete body, of the same nature that particular bodies. So is the destiny of particular causes and events one general one, of the same nature that particular causes are. Would I now say, even they that are mere idiots are not ignorant of, for they say commonly tau omicron phi epsilon rho epsilon nu upsilon tau, that is, this his destiny hath brought upon him. This therefore is by the fates properly and particularly brought upon this, as that unto this in particular is by the physician prescribed. These therefore let us accept of in like manner, as we do those that are prescribed unto us, our physicians. For them also in themselves shall we find to contain many harsh things, but we nevertheless, in hope of health and recovery, accept of them. Let the fulfilling and accomplishment of those things which the common nature hath determined be unto thee as thy health, accept. Then and be pleased with whatsoever doth happen, though otherwise harsh and unpleasing, as tending to that end, to the health and welfare of the universe, and to Jove's happiness and prosperity. For this whatsoever it be, should not have been produced, had it not conduced to the good of the universe. For neither doth any ordinary particular nature bring anything to pass, that is not to whatsoever is within the sphere of its own proper administration and government agreeable and subordinate. For these two considerations then thou must be well pleased with anything that doth happen unto thee. First, because that for thee properly it was brought to pass, and unto thee it was prescribed. And that from the very beginning by the series and connection of the first causes, it hath ever had a reference unto thee. And secondly, because the good success and perfect welfare, and indeed the very continuance of him, that is the administrator of the whole, doth in a manner depend on it. For the whole because whole, therefore entire and perfect is maimed and mutilated. If thou shalt cut off anything at all, whereby the coherence and contiguity as of parts, so of causes, is maintained and preserved. Of which certain it is, that thou doest as much as lieth in thee cut off, and in some sort violently take somewhat away, as often as thou art displeased with anything that happeneth. 9. Be not discontented, be not disheartened. Be not out of hope, if often it succeed not so well with thee punctually and precisely to do all things according to the right dogmata, but being once cast off, return unto them again. And as for those many and more frequent occurrences, either of worldly distractions, or human infirmities, which as a man thou canst not but in some measure be subject unto, be not thou discontented with them. But however, love and affect that only which thou dost return unto, a philosopher's life and proper occupation after the most exact manner.
I feel like he's saying that you shouldn't let failures get you down. You should always return to the things you know and hit those problems again. You know, never give up is what he's saying.
And when thou didst return to thy philosophy, return not unto it as the manner of some is, after play and liberty as it were, to their schoolmasters and pedagogues. But as they that have sore eyes to their sponge and egg, or as another to his cataplasm, or as others to their fomentations, so shalt not thou make it a matter of ostentation at all to obey reason but of ease and comfort, and remember that philosophy requireth nothing of thee, but what thy nature requireth, and wouldest thou thyself desire anything that is not according to nature? For which of these sayest thou, that which is according to nature or against it, is of itself more kind and pleasing? Is it not for that respect especially, that pleasure itself is to so many men's hurt and overthrow most prevalent, because esteemed commonly most kind and natural? but consider well whether magnanimity rather, and true liberty, and true simplicity, and equanimity, and holiness, whether these be not most kind and natural. And prudency itself, what more kind and amiable than it, when thou shalt truly consider with thyself, what it is through all the proper objects of thy rational intellectual faculty currently to go on without any fall or stumble. As for the things of the world, their true nature is in a manner so involved with obscurity, that unto many philosophers, and those no mean ones, they seemed altogether incomprehensible, and the Stoics themselves, though they judge them not altogether incomprehensible, yet scarce and not without much difficulty comprehensible, so that all assent of ours is fallible. For who is he that is infallible in his conclusions? From the nature of things, pass now unto their subjects and matter. How temporary, how vile are they, such as may be in the power and possession of some abominable loose liver, of some common strumpet, of some notorious oppressor and extortioner. Pass from thence to the dispositions of them that thou doest ordinarily converse with. How hardly do we bear, even with the most loving and amiable, that I may not say, how hard it is for us to bear even with our own selves in such obscurity and impurity of things, in such and so continual a flux both of the substances and time, both of the motions themselves and things moved. What it is that we can fasten upon, either to honor and respect especially, or seriously and studiously to seek after, I cannot so much as conceive, for indeed they are things contrary. 10. Thou must comfort thyself in the expectation of thy natural dissolution, and in the meantime not grieve at the delay, but rest contented in those two things. First, that nothing shall happen unto thee, which is not according to the nature of the universe. Secondly, that it is in thy power to do nothing against thine own proper God and inward spirit, for it is not in any man's power to constrain thee to transgress against him.
Literally, trust the universe and you're powerless against it. That's so black pill. No wonder all these Stoics end up with, like, mental health issues.
11. What is the use that now at this present I make of my soul? Thus from time to time and upon all occasions thou must put this question to thyself. What is now that part of mine which they call the rational mistress part employed about? Whose soul do I now properly possess? A child's, or a youth's, a woman's, or a tyrant's? Some brute, or some wild beast's soul? 12. What those things are in themselves, which by the greatest part are esteemed good, thou mayest gather even from this. For if a man shall hear things mentioned as good, which are really good indeed, such as are prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, after so much heard and conceived, he cannot endure to hear of any more, for the word good is properly spoken of them. But as for those which by the vulgar are esteemed good, if he shall hear them mentioned as good, he doth hearken for more. He is well contented to hear that what is spoken by the comedian is but familiarly and popularly spoken, so that even the vulgar apprehend the difference. For why is it else that this offends not and needs not to be excused, when virtues are styled good, but that which is spoken in commendation of wealth, pleasure, or honor, we entertain it only as merrily and pleasantly spoken? Proceed therefore, and inquire further, whether it may not be that those things also, which being mentioned upon the stage were merrily and with great applause of the multitude, scoffed at with this jest, that they that possessed them had not in all the world of their own, such was their affluence, and plenty so much as a place where to avoid their excrements. Whether, I say, those ought not also in very deed to be much respected, and esteemed of, as the only things that are truly good. 13. All that I consist of is either form or matter, no corruption can reduce either of these unto nothing, for neither did I of nothing become a subsistent creature. Every part of mine then will by mutation be disposed into a certain part of the whole world, and that in time into another part, and so in infinitum. By which kind of mutation I also became what I am, and so did they that begot me, and they before them, and so upwards in infinitum. For so we may be allowed to speak, though the age and government of the world be to some certain periods of time limited, and confined. 14. Reason and rational power are faculties which content themselves with themselves and their own proper operations. And as for their first inclination and motion, that they take from themselves. But their progress is right to the end and object, which is in their way, as it were, and lieth just before them, that is, which is feasible and possible, whether it be that which at the first they propose to themselves, or no, for which Reason also such actions are termed kappa alpha tau omicron rho theta p sigma epsilon iota sigma to intimate the directness of the way by which they are achieved. Nothing must be thought to belong to a man which doth not belong unto him as he is a man. These, the event of purposes, are not things required in a man. The nature of man doth not profess any such things. The final ends and consummations of actions are nothing at all to a man's nature. The end, therefore, of a man, or the summum bonum whereby that end is fulfilled, cannot consist in the consummation of actions purposed and intended. Again, concerning these outward worldly things, were it so that any of them did properly belong unto man, then would it not belong unto man to condemn them and to stand in opposition with them? Neither would he be praiseworthy that can live without them. Or he good if these were good indeed, who of his own accord doth deprive himself of any of them. But we see contrariwise, that the more a man doth withdraw himself from these wherein external pomp and greatness doth consist, or any other like these, or the better he doth bear with the loss of these, the better he is accounted. 15. Such as thy thoughts and ordinary cogitations are, such will thy mind be in time. For the soul doth as it were receive its tincture from the fancies and imaginations. Diet therefore and thoroughly soak it with the assiduity of these cogitations, as for example, wheresoever thou mayest. Live, there it is in thy power to live well and happy. But thou mayest live at the court, there then also mayest thou live well and happy. Again, that which everything is made for, he is also made unto that, and cannot but naturally incline unto it. That which anything doth naturally incline unto, therein is his end. Wherein the end of everything doth consist, therein also doth his good and benefit consist. Society, therefore, is the proper good of a rational creature, for that we are made for society, it hath long since been demonstrated. Or can any man make any question of this, that whatsoever is naturally worse and inferior is ordinarily subordinated to that which is better, and that those things that are best are made one for another, and those things that have souls are better than those that have none, and of those that have, those best that have rational souls. 16. To desire things impossible is the part of a madman, but it is a thing impossible that wicked man should not commit some such things. Neither doth anything happen to any man, which in the ordinary course of nature as natural unto him doth not happen. Again, the same things happen unto others also. And truly, if either he that is ignorant that such a thing hath happened unto him, or he that is ambitious to be commended for his magnanimity can be patient, and is not grieved, is it not a grievous thing that either ignorance or a vain desire to please and to be commended should be more powerful and effectual than true prudence? As for the things themselves, they touch not the soul, neither can they have any access unto it, neither can they of themselves any ways either affect it or move it. For she herself alone can affect and move herself, and according as the dogmata and opinions are, which she doth vouchsafe herself, so are those things which, as accessories, have any coexistence with her. 17. After 1. Consideration, man is nearest unto us, as we are bound to do them good and to bear with them. But as he may oppose any of our true proper actions, so man is unto me but as a thing indifferent, even as the sun, or the wind, or some wild beast. By some of these it may be, that some operation or other of mine may be hindered. However, of my mind and resolution itself, there can be no let or impediment, by reason of that ordinary constant both exception or reservation, wherewith it inclineth and ready conversion of objects, from that which may not be to that which may be, which in the prosecution of its inclinations, as occasion serves, it doth observe. For by these the mind doth turn and convert any impediment whatsoever, to be her aim and purpose. So that what before was the impediment, is now the principal object of her working, and that which before was in her way, is now her readiest way. 18. Honor that which is chiefest and most powerful in the world, and that is it, which makes use of all things, and governs all things. So also in thyself, honor that which is chiefest and most powerful, and is of one kind and nature with that which we now spake of. For it is the very same, which being in thee turneth all other things to its own use, and by whom also thy life is governed. 19. That which doth not hurt the city itself cannot hurt any citizen. This rule thou must remember to apply and make use of. Upon every conceit and
That doesn't hurt, that doesn't hurt the city, doesn't hurt any citizen. I wonder how accurate that really is, or if that is merely just a matter of perspective. Like, are there things that could hurt citizens but not hurt the city at large? What about like um I don't know. I don't know what a good example would be. I think maybe an example could be like something that helps the city could be maybe like hosting an international sports event like the Olympics or something, right? So you invest for all of these tourists and outsiders to come in, which could hurt the individuals inside the city, but you don't really care about the individuals inside the city because you're more focused on the people outside of the city and the people that could come in. Um, so I wonder if that would be one example of how this is like no longer applicable, or not no longer applicable, but like maybe just contextually different, based on the times that we live in.
And apprehension of wrong. If the whole city be not hurt by this, neither am I certainly. And if the whole be not, why should I make it my private grievance? Consider rather what it is wherein he is overseen that is thought to have done the wrong. Again, often meditate how swiftly all things that subsist, and all things that are done in the world, are carried away, and as it were conveyed out of sight. For both the substance themselves, we see as a flood, are in a continual flux, and all actions in a perpetual change. And the causes themselves, subject to 1,000 alterations, neither is there anything almost that may ever be said to be now settled and constant. Next unto this, and which follows upon it, consider both the infiniteness of the time already past, and the immense vastness of that which is to come, wherein all things are to be resolved and annihilated. Art not thou then a very fool, who for these things art either puffed up with pride, or distracted with cares, or canst find in thy heart to make such moans as for a thing that would trouble thee for a very long time? Consider the whole universe whereof thou art but a very little part, and the whole age of the world together, whereof but a short and very momentary portion is allotted unto thee, and all the fates and destines together, of which how much is it that comes to thy part and share? Again, another doth trespass against me. Let him look to that. He is master of his own disposition, and of his own operation. I for my part am in the meantime in possession of as much as the common nature would have me to possess, and that which mine own nature would have me do, I do. 20. Let not that chief commanding part of thy soul be ever subject to any variation through any corporal either pain or pleasure, neither suffer it to be mixed with these, but let it both circumscribe itself and confine those affections to their own proper parts and members. But if at any time they do reflect and rebound upon the mind and understanding as in a united and compacted body, it must needs. Then must thou not go about to resist sense and feeling, it being natural. However, let not thy understanding to this natural sense and feeling, which whether unto our flesh pleasant or painful, is unto us nothing properly, add an opinion of either good or bad, and all is well. 21. To live with the God.
Yeah, that's a really good example of the Qatar soccer arena. Thank you, Leah. I am trying to think of what he's saying in this last point. I feel like he's saying to have principles and not let yourself be bought with pleasure or be tortured into a position that you don't hold naturally. And he's saying like, don't avoid things that are why am I being attacked? I'm literally just being a slave. What the heck? Oh my gosh. I was doing what I was supposed to be, but I feel like he's saying like, don't avoid things if they're pleasurable just because they're pleasurable, or go to it just because it's not pleasurable if it's not pleasurable, but don't let yourself be tempted or swayed.
He liveth with the gods, who at all times affords unto them the spectacle of a soul, both contented and well pleased with whatsoever is afforded or allotted unto her, and performing whatsoever is pleasing to that spirit, whom being part of himself Jove hath appointed to every man as his overseer and governor. 22. Be not angry neither with him whose breath, neither with him whose armholes are offensive. What can he do? Such is his breath naturally, and such are his armholes, and from such an effect, and such a smell must of necessity proceed. Oh, but the man sayest thou hast understanding in him, and might of himself know that he by standing near cannot choose but offend, and that also God bless thee. Hast understanding, let thy reasonable faculty work upon his reasonable faculty. Show him his fault, admonish him. If he hearken unto thee, thou hast cured him, and there will be no more occasion of anger. 23. Where there?
He said, sometimes people are gonna smell bad or have no arms, and you should not make them feel bad for that because they know they smell bad or they know that they have no arms. That is another level of like social grace. Shout out Marcus Aurelius in very long time ago for encouraging the people around him to be tolerant of others, based in red pilled.
Free, neither shall any man hinder me to do what I will, and my will shall ever be by the proper nature of a reasonable and sociable creature, regulated and directed. 24. That rational essence by which the universe is governed is for community and society. And therefore hath it both made the things that are worse for the best, and hath allied and knit together those which are best, as it were in an harmony. Seest thou not how it hath subordinated and coordinated, and how it hath distributed unto everything according to its worth? And those which have the preeminency and superiority above all, hath it united together into a mutual consent and agreement. 25. How hast thou carried thyself hitherto towards the gods? Towards thy parents, towards thy brethren, towards thy wife, towards thy children, towards thy masters, thy foster fathers, thy friends, thy domestics, thy servants? Is it so with thee, that hitherto thou hast neither by word, or deed wronged any of them? Remember withal through how many things thou hast already passed, and how many thou hast been able to endure. So that now the legend of thy life is full, and thy charge is accomplished. Again, how many truly good things have certainly by thee been discerned? How many pleasures, how many pains hast thou passed over with contempt? How many things eternally glorious hast thou despised? Towards how many perverse unreasonable men hast thou carried thyself kindly and discreetly? 26. Why should imprudent and learned souls trouble that which is...
I actually really like that. He said, how many enjoyable and non-enjoyable things have you abstained from? How many of life's amazing experiences have you stopped yourself from experiencing? How many evil men, how many rude men, how many negative individuals have you enabled through silence, through your own inaction, right? Like, how have you impacted the world? And I don't know, that's so based. I love this guy. I should have read this a long time ago.
both learned and prudent, and which is that is so. She that understandeth the beginning and the end, and hath the true knowledge of that rational essence, that passeth through all things subsisting, and through all ages being ever the same, disposing and dispensing as it were this universe by certain periods of time. 27. Within a very little while thou wilt be either ashes, or a solitum, and a name perchance, and perchance not so much as a name. And what is that but an empty sound, and a rebounding echo? Those things which in this life are dearest unto us, and of most account, they are in themselves but vain, putrid, contemptible. The most weighty and serious, if rightly esteemed, but as puppies, biting one another, or untoward children, now laughing and then crying. As for faith and modesty and justice and truth, they long since, as one of the poets hath it, have abandoned this spacious earth, and retired themselves unto heaven. What is it then that doth keep thee here, if things sensible be so mutable and unsettled, and the senses so obscure and so fallible, and our souls nothing but an exhalation of blood? And to be in credit among such be but vanity. What is it that thou dost stay for, an extinction or a translation? Either of them with a propitious and contented mind, but still that time come what will, shall neither roarer be nor harlot. Why so? As thou dost purpose to live, when thou hast retired thyself to some such place, where neither roarer nor harlot is, so mayest thou hear. And if they will not suffer thee, then mayest thou leave thy life rather than thy calling. But so as one that doth not think himself anyways wronged, only as one would say, here is a smoke. I will out of it, and what a great matter is this. Now till some such thing force me out, I will continue. Content thee, what else, but to worship and praise the gods, and to do good unto men, to bear with them, and to forbear to do them any wrong. And for all external things belonging either to this thy wretched body, or life, to remember that they are neither thine, nor in thy power. The question for this video is, what are you avoiding in favor of comfort today?
This has been an EMC reading from Liberty Myself. To learn more about our project to create decentralized media alternatives, visit libertymyself.com. By creating Liberty Myself, we create liberty for all.
Based Marcus Aurelius.
Welcome to the Liberty Myself Emancipation Media Club. Today's reading is
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
This is part of our twice daily content heartbeat designed to help build information autonomy in our algorithm-dominated world. Listen, reflect, and engage however works for you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Stay free.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the 7th book. What is badness? It is that which thou hast often seen. And on the occasion of everything which happens, keep this in mind, that it is that which thou hast often seen. Everywhere up and down thou wilt find the same things, with which the old histories are filled, those of the Middle Ages and those of our own day, with which cities and houses are filled now. There is nothing new, all things are both familiar and short-lived. How can our principles become dead, unless the impressions, thoughts, which correspond to them are extinguished? But it is in thy power continuously to fan these thoughts into a flame. I can have that opinion about anything, which I ought to have. If I can, why am I disturbed? The things which are external to my mind have no relation at all to my mind. Let this be the state of thy affects, and thou standest erect. To recover thy life is in thy power. Look at things again as thou didst use to look at them, for in this consists the recovery of thy life. The idle business of show, plays on the stage, flocks of sheep, herds, exercises with spears, a bone cast to little dogs, a bit of bread into fish ponds, laborings of ants and burden carrying, runnings about of frightened little mice, puppets pulled by strings all alike. It is thy duty then in the midst of such things to show good humor and not a proud air. To understand, however, that every man is worth just so much as the things are worth about which he busies himself. In discourse thou must attend to what is said, and in every movement thou must observe what is doing. And in the one thou shouldst see immediately to what end it refers, but in the other watch carefully what is the thing signified. Is my understanding sufficient for this or not? If it is sufficient, I use it for the work as an instrument given by the universal nature. But if it is not sufficient, then either I retire from the work and give way to him who is able to do it better. Unless there be some reason why I ought not to do so, or I do it as well as I can, taking to help me the man who with the aid of my ruling principle can do what is now fit and useful for the general good. For whatsoever either by myself or with another I can do, ought to be directed to this only, to that which is useful and well suited to society. How many after being celebrated by fame have been given up to oblivion, and how many who have celebrated the fame of others have long been dead? Be not ashamed to be helped, for it is thy business to do thy duty like a soldier in the assault on a town. How then, if being lame thou canst not mount up on the battlements alone, but with the help of another it is possible? Let not future things disturb thee, for thou wilt come to them, if it shall be necessary.
Okay, I don't know if going about everything with the attitude of a soldier taking over a town. You know, like soldiers taking over towns, they do rely on each other. You need the whole army. No individual soldier is going to take over the whole town. At the same time, I don't know if mentally holding the idea of yourself as a soldier taking over a town is a good mentality to have. But that's not here or there. Overall, I feel like so far this is shaping to be a good piece of Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Having with thee the same reason which now thou usest for present things. All things are implicated with one another, and the bond is holy, and there is hardly anything unconnected with any other thing. For things have been coordinated, and they combine to form the same universe, order. For there is one universe made up of all things, and one God who pervades all things, and one substance, and one law, one common reason in all intelligent animals, and one truth. If indeed there is also one perfection for all animals which are of the same stock and participate in the same reason. Everything material soon disappears in the substance of the whole. And everything formal, causal, is very soon taken back into the universal reason, and the memory of everything is very soon overwhelmed in time. To the rational animal, the same act is according to nature.
I like that idea of universal reason, right? Like things are temporarily taken out of the universal reason, out of this like universal chaos, and then quickly returned, right? Like we take our order out of the chaos of the universe, but that chaos always returns. So that's quite nice, quite nice.
Nature and according to reason. Be thou erect, or be made erect. Just as it is with the members in those bodies which are united in one, so it is with rational beings which exist separate, for they have been constituted for one cooperation. And the perception of this will be more apparent to thee, if thou often sayest to thyself that I am a member, melos, of the system of rational beings. But if, using the letter R, thou sayest that thou art a part, miros, thou dost not yet love men from thy heart, beneficence does not yet delight thee for its own sake, thou still doest it barely as a thing of propriety, and not yet as doing good to thyself. Let there fall externally what will on the parts which can feel the effects of this fall. For those parts which have felt will complain, if they choose. But I, unless I think that what has happened is an evil, am not injured. And it is in my power not to think so. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be good, just as if the gold, or the emerald, or the purple were always saying this. Whatever anyone does or says, I must be emerald and keep my color. The ruling faculty does not disturb itself, I mean, does not frighten itself or cause itself pain. But if anyone else can frighten or pain it, let him do so. For the faculty itself will, not by its own opinion, turn itself into such ways. Let the body itself take care, if it can, that is suffer nothing, and let it speak, if it suffers. But the soul itself, that which is subject to fear, to pain, which has completely the power of forming an opinion about these things, will suffer nothing, for it will never deviate into such a judgment. The leading principle in itself wants nothing, unless it makes a want for itself. And therefore it is both free from perturbation and unimpeded, if it does not disturb and impede itself. Eudaimonia, happiness, is a good demon, or a good thing. What then art thou doing here, O imagination? Go away, I entreat thee by the gods, as thou didst come, for I want thee not. But thou art come according to thy old fashion. I am not angry with thee, only go away. Is any man afraid of change? Why, what can take place without change? What then is more pleasing or more suitable to the universal nature? And canst thou take a bath unless the wood undergoes a change? And canst thou be nourished, unless the food undergoes a change? And can anything else that is useful be accomplished without change? Dost thou not see then that for thyself also to change is just the same, and equally necessary for the universal nature?
Change is vital for both growth, in terms of things that are good and bad, right? Like change is kind of the universal constant. I think there's that other saying that's like the only thing constant in the world is change, right? So like this kind of is playing on those same themes. So that's interesting.
Through the universal substance as through a furious torrent all bodies are carried, being by their nature united with and cooperating with the whole, as the parts of our body with one another. How many a Chrysippus, how many a Socrates, how many an Epictetus has time already swallowed up? And let the same thought occur to thee with reference to every man and thing. One thing only troubles me, lest I should do something which the constitution of man does not allow. Or in the way which it does not allow, or what it does not allow now. Near is thy forgetfulness of all things, and near the forgetfulness of thee by all. It is peculiar to man to love even those who do wrong. And this happens, if when they do wrong it occurs to thee that they are kinsmen, and that they do wrong through ignorance and unintentionally, and that soon both of you will die, and above all, that the wrongdoer has done thee no harm, for he has not made thy ruling faculty worse than it was before. The universal nature out of the universal substance, as if it were wax, now molds a horse, and when it has broken this up, it uses the material for a tree, then for a man, then for something else, and each of these things subsists for a very short time. But it is no hardship for the vessel to be broken up, just as there was none in its being fastened together. A scowling look is altogether unnatural. When it is often assumed, the result is that all comeliness dies away, and at last is so completely extinguished that it cannot be again lighted up at all. Try to conclude from this very fact that it is contrary to reason. For if even the perception of doing wrong shall depart, what reason is there for living any longer? Nature which governs the whole will soon change all things which thou sayest, and out of their substance will make other things, and again other things from the substance of them, in order that the world may be ever new. When a man has done thee any wrong, immediately consider with what opinion about good or evil he has done wrong. For when thou hast seen this, thou wilt pity him, and wilt neither wonder.
True, so based. Always think about the perspective that people are doing things through good or bad, and both your own perspective of them and their perspective of their own action, right? But also, keep in mind that the universe is always changing.
Wonder nor be angry. For either thou thyself thinkest the same thing to be good that he does, or another thing of the same kind. It is thy duty then to pardon him. But if thou dost not think such things to be good or evil, thou wilt more readily be well disposed to him who is in error. Think not so much of what thou hast not as of what thou hast, but of the things which thou hast select the best, and then reflect how eagerly they would have been sought, if thou hadst them not. At the same time, however, take care that thou dost not through being so pleased with them accustom thyself to overvalue them, so as to be disturbed if ever thou shouldst not have them. Retire into thyself. The rational principle which rules has this nature, that it is content with itself when it does what is just, and so secures tranquility. Wipe out the imagination. Stop the pulling of the strings. Confine thyself to the present. Understand well what happens either to thee or to another. Divide and distribute every object into the causal, formal, and the material. Think of thy last hour. Let the wrong which is done by a man stay there where the wrong was done. Direct thy attention to what is said. Let thy understanding enter into the things that are doing and the things which do them. Adorn thyself with simplicity and modesty, and with indifference towards the things which lie between virtue and vice. Love mankind. Follow God. The poet says that law rules all, and it is enough to remember that law rules all. About death, whether it is a dispersion, or a resolution into atoms, or annihilation, it is either extinction or change. About pain, the pain which is intolerable carries us off, but that which lasts a long time is tolerable, and the mind maintains its own tranquility by retiring into itself, and the ruling faculty is not made worse. But the parts which are harmed by pain, let them, if they can, give their opinion about it. About fame, look at the minds of those who seek fame, observe what they are, and what kind of things they avoid, and what kind of things they pursue. And consider that as the heaps of sand piled on one another hide the former sands, so in life the events which go before are soon covered by those which come after. From Plato, the man who has an elevated mind and takes a view of all time and of all substance, dost thou suppose it possible for him to think that human life is anything great? It is not possible, he said. Such a man then will think that death also is no evil, certainly not. From Antisthenes, it is royal to do good and to be abused. It is a base thing for the countenance to be obedient and to regulate and compose itself as the mind commands, and for the mind not to be regulated and composed by itself. It is not right to vex ourselves at things, for they care not about it. To the immortal gods and us give joy. Life must be reaped like the ripe ears of corn. One man is born, another dies. If gods care not for me and for my children, there is a reason for it. For the good is with me, and the just. No joining others in their wailing, no violent emotion. From Plato, but I would make this man a sufficient answer, which is this: thou sayest not well, if thou thinkest that a man who is good for anything at all ought to compute the hazard of life or death, and should not rather look to this only in all that he does, whether he is doing what is just or unjust, and the works of a good or a bad man. For thus it is, men of Athens, in truth, wherever a man has placed himself thinking it the best place for him, or has been placed by a commander, there in my opinion he ought to stay and to abide the hazard, taking nothing into the reckoning, either death or anything else, before the baseness of deserting his post. But, my good friend, reflect whether that which is noble and good is not something different from saving and being saved, for as to a man living such or such a time, at least one who is really a man, consider if this is not a thing to be dismissed from the thoughts, and there must be no love of life, but as to these matters a man must entrust them to the deity and believe what the women say. That no man can escape his destiny, the next inquiry being how he may best live the time that he has to live. Look round at the courses of the stars, as if thou wert going along with them, and constantly consider the changes of the elements into one another, for such thought.
I find that really interesting that he is basically saying that if you as a man find a good position in life for you, whether self-identified, you place yourself there, or um, plur-identified, your commander places you there, you should stay there, right? And that um, if you are able to find happiness in your post, that you should do like the women say and enjoy it. Don't worry about matters of life and death. Don't worry about the deeper complexities. Just listen to the women, let the women run things, and do your role. Kind of fill your singvert position. So I do find that really intriguing that that is like a cultural underlying factor here. Or maybe just like a word of wisdom and advice, like believe the women in your life.
Purge away the filth of the terrene life. This is a fine saying of Plato, that he who is discoursing about men should look also at earthly things as if he viewed them from some higher place, should look at them in their assemblies, armies, agricultural labors, marriages, treaties, births, deaths, noise of the courts of justice, desert places, various nations of barbarians, feasts, lamentations, markets. A mixture of all things and an orderly combination of contraries. Consider the past, such great changes of political supremacies. Thou mayest foresee also the things which will be. For they will certainly be of like form, and it is not possible that they should deviate from the order of the things which take place now. Accordingly, to have contemplated human life for 40 years is the same as to have contemplated it for 10,000 years. For what more wilt thou see? That which has grown from the earth to the earth, but that which has sprung from heavenly seed, back to the heavenly realms returns. This is either a dissolution of the mutual involution of the atoms, or a similar dispersion of the unsentient elements. With food and drinks and cunning magic arts turning the channel's course to escape from death. The breeze which heaven has sent we must endure, and toil without complaining. Another may be more expert in casting his opponent, but he is not more social, nor more modest, nor better disciplined to meet all that happens, nor more considerate with respect to the faults of his neighbors. Where any work can be done conformably to the reason which is common to gods and men, there we have nothing to fear, for where we are able to get profit by means of the activity which is successful and proceeds according to our constitution, there no harm is to be suspected. Everywhere and at all times it is in thy power piously to acquiesce in thy present condition, and to behave justly to those who are about thee, and to exert thy skill upon thy present thoughts, that nothing shall steal into them without being well examined. Do not look around thee to discover other men's ruling principles, but look straight to this, to what nature leads thee, both the universal nature through the things which happen to thee, and thy own nature through the acts which must be done by thee. But every being ought to do that which is
Yeah, look at the laws of nature, not the laws of man.
according to its constitution, and all other things have been constituted for the sake of rational beings. Just as among irrational things the inferior for the sake of the superior, but the rational for the sake of one another. The prime principle then in man's constitution is the social. And the second is not to yield to the persuasions of the body, for it is the peculiar office of the rational and intelligent motion to circumscribe itself, and never to be overpowered either by the motion of the senses or of the appetites, for both are animal, but the intelligent motion claims superiority and does not permit itself to be overpowered by the others. And with good reason, for it is formed by nature to use all of them. The third thing in the rational constitution is freedom from error and from deception. Let then the ruling principle holding fast to these things go straight on, and it has what is its own. Consider thyself to be dead, and to have completed thy life up to the present time, and live according to nature the remainder which is allowed thee. Love that only which happens to thee and is spun with the thread of thy destiny. For what is more suitable? In everything which happens keep before thy eyes those to whom the same things happened, and how they were vexed, and treated them as strange things. And found fault with them, and now where are they? Nowhere. Why then dost thou too choose to act in the same way? And why dost thou not leave these agitations which are foreign to nature, to those who cause them and those who are moved by them? And why art thou not, altogether intent upon the right way of making use of the things which happen to thee? For then thou wilt use them well, and they will be a material for thee to work on. Only attend to thyself, and resolve to be a good man in every act which thou doest, and remember. Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up, if thou wilt ever dig. The body ought to be compact, and to show no irregularity either in motion or attitude. For what the mind shows in the face by maintaining in it the expression of intelligence and propriety, that ought to be required also in the whole body. But all of these things should be observed without affectation. The art of life is more like the wrestler's art than the dancer's, in respect of this, that it should stand ready and firm to meet onsets which are sudden and unexpected. Constantly observe who those are whose approbation thou wishest to have, and what ruling principles they possess. For then thou wilt neither blame those who offend involuntarily, nor wilt thou want their approbation, if thou lookest to the sources of their opinions and appetites. Every soul, the philosopher says, is involuntarily deprived of truth, Consequently, in the same way, it is deprived of justice and temperance and benevolence and everything of the kind. It is most necessary to bear this constantly in mind, for thus thou wilt be more gentle towards all. In every pain let this thought be present.
That's so sad. Nobody's able to have truth because as soon as you think something, it's no longer truth. I'm deeply paraphrasing, but that is devastating.
That there is no dishonor in it, nor does it make the governing intelligence worse, for it does not damage the intelligence either so far as the intelligence is rational or so far as it is social. Indeed, in the case of most pains, let this remark of Epicurus aid thee. That pain is neither intolerable nor everlasting, if thou bearest in mind that it has its limits, and if thou addest nothing to it in imagination. And remember this too, that we do not perceive that many things which are disagreeable to us are the same as pain, such as excessive drowsiness, and the being scorched by heat, and the having no appetite. When then thou art discontented about any of these things, say to thyself, that thou art yielding to pain. Take care not to feel towards the inhuman, as they feel towards men. How do we know if Telogs was not superior in character to Socrates? For it is not enough that Socrates died a more noble death, and disputed more skillfully with the sophists, and passed the night in the cold with more endurance, and that when he was bid to arrest Leon of Salamis, he considered it more noble to refuse, and that he walked in a swaggering way in the streets, though as to this fact one may have great doubts if it was true. But we ought to inquire what kind of a soul it was that Socrates possessed, and if he was able to be content with being just towards men and pious towards the gods, neither idly vexed on account of men's villainy, nor yet making himself a slave to any man's ignorance, nor receiving as strange anything that fell to his share out of the universal, nor enduring it as intolerable, nor allowing his understanding to sympathize with the affects of the miserable flesh. Nature has not so mingled the intelligence with the composition of the body, as not to have allowed thee the power of circumscribing thyself and of bringing under subjection to thyself all that is thy own, for it is very possible to be a divine man and to be recognized as such by no one. Always bear this in mind, and another thing too, that very little indeed is necessary for living a happy life. And because thou hast despaired of becoming a dialectician and skilled in the knowledge of nature, do not for this reason renounce the hope of being both free and modest and social and obedient to God. It is in thy power to live free from all compulsion in the greatest tranquility of mind, even if all the world cry out against thee as much as they choose, and, even if wild beasts tear in pieces the members of this needed matter which has grown around thee. For what hinders the mind in the midst of all this from maintaining itself in tranquility and in a just judgment of all surrounding things and in a ready use of the objects which are presented to it, so that the judgment may say to the thing which falls under its observation, this thou art in substance, reality, though in men's opinion thou mayest appear to be of a different kind. And the youth shall say to that which falls under the hand, thou art the thing that I was seeking, for to me that which presents itself is always a material for virtue both rational and political, and in a word, for the exercise of art, which belongs to man or God. For everything which happens has a relationship either to God or man, and is neither new nor difficult to handle, but usual and apt matter to work on. The perfection of moral character consists in this, in passing every day as the last, and in being neither violently excited nor torpid nor playing the hypocrite. The gods who are immortal are not vexed because during so long a time they must tolerate continually men such as they are and so many of them bad, and besides this, they also take care of them in all ways. But thou, who art destined to end so soon, art thou wearied of enduring the bad, and this too when thou art one of them? It is a ridiculous thing for a man not to fly from his own badness, which is indeed possible, but to fly from other men's badness, which is impossible. Whatever the rational and political, social, faculty finds to be neither intelligent nor social, it
That's so based. You as a human being are able to fly from your own bad. You're able to escape the bad that you have inside. And when Marcus Aurelius, or when I say the bad here, I'm assuming it means things like bad behaviors, bad lines of thinking, bad brainworms, etc. You're able to fly from that. You're able to leave those things behind. You're able to move past them in a way that you're not able to move past the bad things of other people, right? Like you can't control the negative aspects that other people hold inside, but you can control the negative aspects that you control inside. By being very particular and conscientious and um agentic, right? Like by taking action and identifying these issues by the ways that Marcus Aurelius mentions.
properly judges to be inferior to itself. When thou hast done a good act and another has received it, why dost thou look for a third thing besides these, as fools do, either to have the reputation of having done a good act or to obtain a return? No man is tired of receiving what is useful. But it is useful to act according to nature. Do not then be tired of receiving what is useful by doing it to others. The nature of the end moved to make the universe. But now either everything that takes place comes by way of consequence or continuity, or even the chief things towards which the ruling power of the universe directs its own movement are governed by no rational principle. If this is remembered, it will make thee more tranquil in many things. For reflection, how can focusing on the present moment help you live a more peaceful and meaningful life?
This has been an EMC reading from Liberty Myself. To learn more about our project to create decentralized media alternatives, visit libertymyself.com. By creating Liberty Myself, we create liberty for all.
Welcome to the Liberty Myself Emancipation Media Club. Today's reading is
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
This is part of our twice daily content heartbeat designed to help build information autonomy in our algorithm-dominated world. Listen, reflect, and engage however works for you. Without further ado, let's jump in. Stay free.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, the ninth book. He who acts unjustly acts impiously.
Speaking of staying
For since the
free,
universal nature has made rational animals for the sake of one another to help one another according to their deserts, but in no way to injure one another, he who transgresses her will is clearly guilty of impiety towards the highest divinity. And he too who lies is guilty of impiety to the same divinity, for the universal nature is the nature of things that are, and things that are have a relation to all things that come into existence. And further, this universal nature is named truth, and is the prime cause of all things that are true. He then who lies intentionally is guilty of impiety inasmuch as he acts unjustly by deceiving, and he also who lies unintentionally.
how could you act deceivingly to all of truth? Like, what the heck? That's literally everything that is good, right? That's what Marcus Aurelius says. So how could you? How could you do that as an individual?
Inasmuch as he is at variance with the universal nature, and inasmuch
How
as
could
he
you?
disturbs the order by fighting against the nature of the world, for he fights against it, who is moved of himself to that which is contrary to truth, for he had received powers from nature through the neglect of which he is not able now to distinguish falsehood from truth. And indeed he who pursues pleasure as good, and avoids pain as evil, is guilty of impiety. For of necessity such a man must often find fault with the universal nature, alleging that it assigns things to the bad and the good contrary to their deserts, because frequently the bad are in the enjoyment of pleasure and possess the things which procure pleasure, but the good have pain for their share and the things which cause pain. And further, he who is afraid of pain will sometimes also be afraid of some of the things which will happen in the world. And even this is impiety. And he who pursues pleasure will not abstain from injustice, and this is plainly impiety. Now with respect to the things towards which the universal nature is equally affected, for it would not have made both, unless it was equally affected towards both towards. These they who wish to follow nature should be of the same mind with it, and equally affected. With respect to pain, then, and pleasure, or death and life, or honor and dishonor, which the universal nature employs equally, whoever is not equally affected is manifestly acting impiously. And I say that the universal nature employs them equally, instead of saying that they happen alike to those who are produced in continuous series and to those who come after them by virtue of a certain original movement of providence, according to which it moved from a certain beginning to this ordering of things, having conceived certain principles of the things which were to be, and having determined powers productive of beings and of changes and of such like successions. It would be a man's happiest lot to depart from mankind without having had any taste of lying and hypocrisy and luxury and pride. However, to breathe out one's life when a man has had enough of these things is the next best voyage, as the saying is. Hast thou determined to abide with vice, and has not experience yet induced thee to fly from this pestilence? For the destruction of the understanding is a pestilence, much more indeed than any such corruption and change of this atmosphere which surrounds us. For this corruption is a pestilence.
Ooh, if you're too deep into vice, Marcus Aurelius thinks that you're not going to be able to fly away. You can't fly away if you're too deep in vice. Uh-oh. What are you going to say to that? What are you going to say to Marcus Aurelius?
Of animals so far as they are animals, but the other is a pestilence of men so far as they are men. Do not despise death, but be well content with it, since this too is one of those things which nature wills. For such as it is to be young and to grow old and to increase and to reach maturity and to have teeth and beard and gray hairs, and to beget and to be pregnant and to bring forth, and all the other natural operations which the seasons of thy life bring, such also is dissolution. This, then, is consistent with the character of a reflecting man, to be neither careless nor impatient nor contemptuous with respect to death, but to wait for it as one of the operations of nature. These they who wish to follow nature should be of the same mind with it, and equally affected. With respect to pain, then, and pleasure, or death and life, or honor and dishonor, which the universal nature employs equally, whoever is not equally affected is manifestly acting impiously. And I say that the universal nature employs them equally, instead of saying that they happen alike to those who are produced in continuous series and to those who come after them by virtue of a certain original movement of providence, according to which it moved from a certain beginning to this ordering of things, having conceived certain principles of the things which were to be, and having determined powers productive of beings and of changes and of such like successions. It would be a man's happiest lot to depart from mankind without having had any taste of lying and hypocrisy and luxury and pride. However, to breathe out one's life when a man has had enough of these things is the next best voyage, as the saying is. Hast thou determined to abide with vice, and has not experience yet induced thee to fly from this pestilence? For the destruction of the understanding is a pestilence, much more indeed than any such corruption and change of this atmosphere which surrounds us. For this corruption is a pestilence of animals so far as they are animals, but the other is a pestilence of men so far as they are men. Do not despise death, but be well content with it, since this too is one of those things which nature wills. For such as it is to be young and to grow old and to increase and to reach maturity and to have teeth and beard and gray hairs, and to beget and to be pregnant and to bring forth, and all the other natural operations which the seasons of thy life bring, such also is dissolution. This, then, is consistent with the character of a reflecting man, to be neither careless nor impatient nor contemptuous with respect to death, but to wait for it as one of the operations of nature. Everything which is earthy turns towards the earth, everything which is liquid flows together, and everything which is of an aerial kind does the same, so that they require something to keep them asunder, and the application of force. Fire indeed moves upwards on account of the elemental fire, but it is so ready to be kindled together with all the fire which is here, that even every substance which is somewhat dry, is easily ignited, because there is less mingled with it of that which is a hindrance to ignition. Accordingly, then everything also which participates in the common intelligent nature moves in like manner towards that which is of the same kind with itself, or moves even more. For so much as it is superior in comparison with all other things, in the same degree also is it more ready to mingle with and to be fused with that which is akin to it. Accordingly, among animals devoid of reason we find swarms of bees, and herds of cattle, and the nurture of young birds, and in a manner, loves. For even in animals there are souls, and that power which brings them together is seen to exert itself in the superior degree, and in such a way as never has been observed in plants nor in stones nor in trees. But in rational animals there are political communities and friendships, and families and meetings of people, and in wars, treaties and armistices. But in the things which are still superior, even though they are separated from one another, unity in a manner exists, as in the stars. Thus the ascent to the higher degree is able to produce a sympathy even in things which are separated. See, then, what now takes place. For only intelligent animals have now forgotten this mutual desire and inclination, and in them alone the property of flowing together is not seen. But still, though men strive to avoid this union, they are caught and held by it, for their nature is too strong for them, and thou wilt see what I say, if thou only observest. Sooner, then, will one find anything earthy which comes in contact with no earthy thing than a man altogether separated from other men. Both man and God and the universe produce fruit, at the proper seasons each produces it. But if usage has especially fixed these terms to the vine and like things, this is nothing. Reason produces fruit both for all and for itself, and there are produced from it other things of the same kind as reason itself. If thou art able, correct by teaching those who do wrong. But if thou canst not, remember that indulgence is given to thee for this purpose. And the gods, too, are indulgent to such persons, and for some purposes they even help them to get health, wealth, reputation, so kind they are. And it is in thy power also, or say, who hinders thee? Labor not as one who is wretched, nor yet as one who would be pitied or admired, but direct thy will to one thing only, to put thyself in motion and to check thyself, as the social reason requires. Today I have got out of all trouble, or rather I have cast out all trouble, for it was not outside, but within and in my opinions. All things are the same, familiar in experience, and ephemeral in time, and worthless in the matter. Everything now is just as it was in the time of those whom we have buried. Things stand outside of us, themselves by themselves, neither knowing aught of themselves, nor expressing any judgment. What is it, then, which does judge about them? The ruling faculty. Not in passivity, but in activity lie the evil and the good of the rational social animal. Just as his virtue and his vice lie not in passivity, but in activity. For the stone which has been thrown up,
I know. I would disagree with Marcus Aurelius, and I would say bees and ants are intelligence, or are intelligent. I would say all animals are intelligent, but, he did say that they have souls, so I'll give him credit where credit's due, right?
it is no evil to come down, nor indeed any good to have been carried up. Penetrate inwards into men's leading principles, and thou wilt see what judges thou art afraid of, and what kind of judges they are of themselves. All things are changing, and thou thyself art in continuous mutation and in a manner in continuous destruction, and the whole universe too. It is thy duty to leave another man's wrongful act there where it is. Termination of activity, cessation from movement and opinion, and in a sense their death, is no evil. Turn thy thoughts now to the consideration of thy life, thy life as a child, as a youth, thy manhood, thy old age, for in these also every change was a death. Is this anything to fear? Turn thy thoughts now to thy life under thy grandfather, then to thy life under thy mother, then to thy life under thy father, and as thou findest many other differences and changes and terminations, ask thyself, is this anything to fear? In like manner, then, neither are the termination and cessation and change of thy whole life a thing to be afraid of. Hasten to examine thy own ruling faculty and that of the universe and that of thy neighbor, thy own that thou mayest make it just, and that of the universe, that thou mayest remember of what thou art a part, and that of thy neighbor, that thou mayest know whether he has acted ignorantly or with knowledge, and that thou mayest also consider that his ruling faculty is akin to thine. As thou thyself art a component part of a social
Yeah, remember that you are a part of a social system and that you and everybody you know probably are more similar than you realize.
system, so let every act of thine be a component part of social life. Whatever act of thine then has no reference either immediately or remotely to a social end, this tears asunder thy life, and does not allow it to be one, and it is of the nature of a mutiny, just as when in a popular assembly a man acting by himself stands apart from the general agreement. Quarrels of little children and their sports, and poor spirits carrying about dead bodies, such as everything, and so what is exhibited in the representation of the mansions of the dead strikes our eyes more clearly. Examine into the quality of the form of an object, and detach it altogether from its material part, and then contemplate it, then determine the time, the longest which a thing of this peculiar form is naturally made to endure. Thou hast endured infinite troubles through not being contented with thy ruling faculty, when it does the things which it is constituted by nature to do. But enough of this. When another blames thee or hates thee, or when men say about thee anything injurious, approach their poor souls, penetrate within, and see what kind of men they are. Thou wilt discover that there is no reason to take any trouble that these men may have this or that opinion about thee. However, thou must be well disposed towards them, for by nature they are friends. And the gods too aid them in all ways, by dreams, by signs, towards the attainment of those things on which they set a value. The periodic movements of the universe are the same, up and down from age to age. And either the universal intelligence puts itself in motion for every separate effect, and if this is so, be thou content with that, which is the result of its activity, or it puts itself in motion once. And everything else comes by way of sequence in a manner, or indivisible elements are the origin of all things. In a word, if there is a God, all is well, and if chance rules, do not thou also be governed by it. Soon will the earth cover us all, then the earth, too, will change, and the things also which result from change will continue to change forever, and these again forever. For if a man reflects on the changes and transformations which follow one another like wave after wave in their rapidity, he will despise everything which is perishable. The universal cause is like a winter torrent, it carries everything along with it. But how worthless are all these poor people who are engaged in matters political, and, as they suppose, are playing the philosopher. All drivellers. Well then, man, do what nature now requires. Set thyself in motion, if it is in thy power, and do not look about thee too. See if any one will observe it, nor yet expect Plato's Republic, but be content if the smallest thing goes on well, and consider such an event to be no small matter. For who can change men's opinions? And without a change of opinions, what else is there than the slavery of men who groan while they pretend to obey? Come now and tell me of Alexander and Philip and Demetrius.
What is there without the change of opinions, other than the slaves of grown men, the slavery of men
who groan while they
pretend to obey.
Come now and tell me of Alexander and Philip and Demetrius of Phalerum. They themselves shall judge whether they discovered what the common nature required, and trained themselves accordingly. But if they acted like tragedy heroes, no one has condemned me to imitate them. Simple and modest is the work of philosophy. Draw me not aside to indolence and pride. Look down from above on the countless herds of men and their countless solemnities, and the infinitely varied voyagings in storms and calms, and the differences among those who are born, who live together, and die. And consider, too, the life lived by others in olden time, and the life of those who will live after thee, and the life now lived among barbarous nations. And how many know not even thy name, and how many will soon forget it, and how they who perhaps now are praising thee will very soon blame thee, and that neither a posthumous name is of any value, nor reputation, nor anything else. Let there be freedom from perturbations with respect to the things which come from the external cause, and let there be justice in the things done by virtue of the internal cause, that is, let there be movement and action terminating in this, in social acts. For this is according to thy nature. Thou canst remove out of the way many useless things among those which disturb thee, for they lie entirely in thy opinion, and thou wilt then gain for thyself ample space by comprehending the whole universe in thy mind, and by contemplating the eternity of time, and observing the rapid change of every several thing. How short is the time from birth to dissolution, and the illimitable time before birth as well as the equally boundless time after dissolution. All that thou seest will quickly perish, and those who have been spectators of its dissolution will very soon perish too. And he who dies at the extremest old age will be brought into the same condition with him who died prematurely. What are these men's leading principles, and about what kind of things are they busy, and for what kind of reasons do they love and honor? Imagine that thou seest their poor souls laid bare, when they think that they do harm by their blame or good by their praise. What an idea! Loss is nothing else than change, but the universal nature delights in change, and in obedience to her all things are now done well, and from eternity have been done in like form, and will be such to time without end. What, then, dost thou say? That all things have been and all things always will be bad, and that no power has ever been found in so many gods to rectify these things, but the world has been condemned to be found in never-ceasing evil? The rottenness of the matter which is the foundation of everything. Water, dust, bones, filth, or again marble rocks. The callosities of the earth, and gold and silver, the sediments and garments, only bits of hair, and purple dye, blood, and everything else is of the same kind. And that which is of the nature of breath is also another thing of the same kind, changing from this to that. Enough of this wretched life and murmuring and apish tricks. Why art thou disturbed? What is there new in this? What unsettles thee? Is it the form of a thing? Look at it, or is it the matter? Look at it, but besides these there is nothing. Towards the gods, then, now become at last more simple and better. It is the same whether we examine these things for 100 years or 3. If any man has done wrong, the harm is his own. But perhaps he has not done wrong. Either all things proceed from one intelligent source and come together as in one body, and the part ought not to find fault with what is done for the benefit of the whole. Or there are only atoms, and nothing else than mixture and dispersion. Why, then, art thou disturbed? Say to the ruling faculty, art thou dead? Art thou corrupted? Art thou playing the hypocrite? Art thou become a beast? Dost thou herd and feed with the rest? Either the gods have no power or they have power. If, then, they have no power, why dost thou pray to them? But if they have power, why dost thou not pray for them to give thee the faculty of not fearing any of the things which thou fearest? Or of not desiring any of the things which thou desirest, or not being pained at anything, rather than pray that any of these things should not happen or happen? For certainly if they can cooperate with men, they can cooperate for these purposes. But perhaps thou wilt say, the gods have placed them in thy power. Well, then, is it not better to use what is in thy power? Like a free man than to desire in a slavish and abject way what is not in thy power? And who has told thee that the gods do not aid us even in the things which are in our power? Begin, then, to pray for such things, and thou wilt see. One man prays thus, how shall I be able to lie with that woman? Did thou pray thus, how shall I not desire to lie with her? Another prays thus, how shall I be released from this? Another prays, how shall I not desire to be released? Another thus, how shall I not lose my little son? Thou thus, how shall I not be afraid to lose him? In fine, turn thy prayers this way, and see what comes. Epicurus says, in my sickness my conversation was not about my bodily sufferings. Nor, says he, did I talk on such subjects to those who visited me, but I continued to discourse on the nature of things as before, keeping to this main point, how the mind, while participating in such movements as go on in the poor flesh, shall be free from perturbations and maintain its proper good. Nor did I, he says, give the physicians an opportunity of putting on solemn looks, as if they were doing something great, but my life went on well and happily. Do, then, the same that he did both in sickness, if thou art sick, and in any other circumstances, for never to desert philosophy in any events that may befall us, nor to hold trifling talk either with an ignorant man or with one unacquainted with nature, is a principle of all schools of philosophy, but to be intent only on that which thou art now doing and on the instrument by which thou doest it. When thou art offended with any man's shameless conduct, immediately ask thyself, is it possible, then, that shameless men should not be in the world? It is not possible. Do not, then, require what is impossible. For this man also is one of those shameless men who must of necessity be in the world.
That's base. It says when there's a shameless man, and it's presumed that he's also doing dumb things, right? Or you know, dumb being ignorant, whatever. When there is a shameless man, ask yourself, should we get rid of all the shameless men? Like, should we kill them? Should the world be without them? And the answer is no, right? The world, there deserves to be shameless men in the world, right? What for whatever good means, right? So then the question becomes, why should you care if there's a shameless man talking to you? Just don't talk to him. It's that easy, right? And that is quite base. Now, I think the other thing he was talking about, how like he was sick and that he didn't let him being sick affect the things he thinks about. Like, he still wants to think of philosophy, he still wants to talk about philosophy. He doesn't want to let his doctors feel like they're ultra good, right? He wants to keep things focused, not on the material reality. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about when we're going through life. Like, should we focus on material reality, or should we be focusing on the way things should be, the way things ought to be, the way things can be, etc., etc.?
Let the same considerations be present to thy mind in the case of the knave and the faithless man, and of every man who does wrong in any way. For at the same time that thou dost remind thyself that it is impossible that such kind of men should not exist, thou wilt become more kindly disposed towards every one individually. It is useful to perceive this, too, immediately when the occasion arises, what virtue nature has given to man to oppose to every wrongful act. For she has given to man, as an antidote against the stupid man, mildness, and against another kind of man some other power. And in all cases it is possible for thee to correct by teaching the man who has gone astray, for every man who errs misses his object and is gone astray. Besides, wherein hast thou been injured? For thou wilt find that no one among those against whom thou art irritated has done anything by which thy mind could be made worse, but that which is evil to thee and harmful has its foundation only in the mind. And what harm is done or what is there strange, if the man who has not been instructed does the acts of an uninstructed man? Consider whether thou shouldst not rather blame thyself, because thou didst not expect such a man to err in such a way. For thou hadst means given thee by thy reason to suppose that it was likely that he would commit this error, and yet thou hast forgotten and art amazed that he has erred. But most of all, when thou blamest a man as faithless or ungrateful, turn to thyself. For the fault is manifestly thy own, whether thou didst trust that a man who had such a disposition would keep his promise. Or when conferring thy kindness thou didst not confer it absolutely, nor yet in such way as to have received from thy very act all the profit. For what more dost thou want when thou hast done a man a service? Art thou not content that thou hast done something conformable to thy nature, and dost thou seek to be paid for it? Just as if the eye demanded a recompense for seeing, or the feet for walking. For as these members are formed for a particular purpose, and by working according to their several constitutions obtain what is their own, so also as man is formed by nature to acts of benevolence, when he has done anything benevolent or in any other way conducive to the common interest, he has acted conformably to his constitution, and he gets what is his own. Based from today's reading, how can you respond to others' faults with understanding and patience rather than judgment or anger?
How can you respond to others' faults without anger? You remind yourself that the world deserves shameless men and that sometimes there's just going to be a shameless man. Now, I think the other thing he talked about is kind of important to keep in mind, that thing of people are going to act the way of what they believe. So if there's somebody who is faithless, not necessarily religious faith, but you can tell when people are in belief of what they believe versus in lip service of what they believe. So if someone is just in lip service of what they believe, don't trust them to actually maintain their word, right? I feel like that's kind of common sense, kind of not common sense if he needs to say it, but I appreciate him saying it.
This has been an EMC reading from Liberty Myself. To learn more about our project to create decentralized media alternatives, visit libertymyself.com. By creating Liberty Myself, we create liberty for all.
And with that, I think I am going to go eat something, but I might stream again after. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will probably see you again in not so long.